All right, hello YouTube. Welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. We got number 14 for Wizard and Glass, Part 14 Book Club. Here we are on a regularly scheduled one too. It feels like that's been a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
In the last month or so, but
My bad.
yeah, it's. I mean, part of it was me too.
That's true.
So, but yeah, we're here right on schedule, and let's go ahead and hit the intro and get started on the episode.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland, to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, as well as the extended Dark Tower, or Stephen King universe.
Yep.
It's all part of the tower. So, but my name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here for book club number 14 for Wizard and Glass. We are chugging right along. Just noticed right before we started, I guess I hadn't really let it sink in where we were, but we are currently 30, what did I just say? And now it's not showing on my... There we go.
37%, 39 will be at the end of the episode.
Yeah, so we'll be at 39% of the way through the book. Well, and that's even deceptive, too, because there's always
There's always that chunk at the end, because they also do, sometimes on Kindle, they do like the next time.
There is. There's the acknowledgments, the afterword. There's also Dark Tower 5 teaser and Sleeping Beauties teaser, as well as about the author and copyright, which are probably pretty short. So, but the two teasers, I would assume, yeah, we might actually be hedging up closer to 50%, would be my uneducated guess. So, yeah, I don't know. That's we're all that to say, we are definitely chugging right along in this book. We are currently in. We'll get into the announcements as well, but just to give it, because I have my Kindle up right now, we are currently in part 2, which is titled Susan. We're in chapter 7, and we're going to be going into chapter 8 in this episode. This is there are 10 chapters in this part. And that is where we find ourselves. But let's go ahead and hit the intro stuff first of all. There is no spoiler warning. We have a spoiler section at the very end, but we stay outside of that very end section. We stay where we're at or before. We don't jump ahead. So if you're currently even going through the very beginnings of book 7, this is a safe episode for you to listen to. Now, if you're reading through like book 2, this would be a very foolish episode for you to listen to. So that is, so I guess that's the kind of the framework for spoilers for this episode. If you want to follow the podcast or find the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasting, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, or any podcasting service of your choice. If you can do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review us on any of those services, we'd appreciate that. And if you'd like to join the live stream or watch old live streams after the fact, you can find us over here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. You can, and then over here on the YouTube side, if you can be so kind as to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Also, if you're not with us live and you're watching sometime in the future, hello, future person. You can also drop comments if you have any comments about, whether it be the episode or the text that we're covering or whatever it might be. You could always drop those comments after the fact. I try to make sure I keep an eye on those things in the future as well. And then if you want to find the show notes, you can find that at darktowerpalaver.com. That is also the center of the Dark Tower wheel, Dark Tower Palaver universe wheel, is darktowerpalaver.com. There's links to all things Dark Tower Palaver over there. Questions for new listeners, also the show notes, but there is no show notes for this because this is a book club. Then if you want to support the show, you can do that over at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. With that, you get access to our Discord server where you can chat with us all the time. We were just discussing right before this, it came up in the chat that apparently all the Stephen King stuff is on sale right now.
Yeah.
Both hard covers or hard copies as well as Audible. There's a bunch of sales going
Kindle
on.
too.
Kindle, yeah. So I don't know why. I don't know if like Simon & Schuster is doing some sale of some kind.
It's a Father's Day summer sale. I think is what it said in an email that I got.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we discussed that, and then also we do we're now back on the horse of doing monthly hangouts. Definitely dropped the ball on that, but we actually just recorded one yesterday. It is in the archive now, where Peter and I discussed You Like It Darker, the newest of the Stephen King family of books, short story collection. So you get access to those as well as all the previous ones as well. Then if you want to contact the show, Peter can let you know the ways to do that.
Best way to reach us is email. It's show@darktowerpalaver.com. And then check out our social medias. We got Twitter. It's @DarkTowerPod. That's @DarkTowerPod. And then we got our Blue Sky account. It's @DarkTowerPalaver.bsky.social. Our Facebook is facebook.com/DarkTowerPalaver. And then find us on Instagram at DarkTowerPalaver, all one word, no spaces there. And then check out our merchandise, tpublic.com/users/DarkTowerPalaver, and get yourself a #TatIsTerrible sticker, pillow, shirt. I went on TeePublic.
Or the real logo, if you want that, too.
That is the real logo. I went on TeePublic the other day for the first time. I'm thinking about replacing my shirt, and they've expanded. They have a lot more stuff. They have like baseball shirts now, like with like you have like the regular colored and then you like the white sleeves.
Yeah.
I don't remember those.
Yeah, that's always been there.
Has it always been there?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just been a minute.
Yeah. Also, I also wanted to mention, I threw it out on social media on Instagram. I think I put it on Twitter and Blue Sky as well. I went to a local pizza shop, and it may have been a repeat because I think we may have shared this years and years ago. But I would say probably 10 or 15 years ago, Peter and I went to that place, and it's one of those places that has the brick walls you can write stuff on, and way up high was a picture of a turtle with a very familiar poem to all of us.
Yes.
And I was there again just a few days ago. I took a picture of it, shared it on social media, even though that may have been something we shared ages ago. But it's nice to see that GAN is still represented at the Pie Pizzeria in Midvale, Utah.
Yeah.
So, so I already kind of gave everyone the rundown of where we're at, where we're jumping in here. So let's go ahead and dive on into part 2, Susan, chapter 7 on the drop, and subchapter 9. And we got 11 subchapters, and then we'll also be covering the first subchapter of chapter 8 in this episode.
Yeah. So Roland and Susanna have had a chance encounter on the drop. That's where we're just like from previous episodes, and there
was a lot of interesting discussion as well.
A lot of stuff happening before that with a run-in with Cordelia, notes going back and forth. Susanna finally deciding not to flowers. Susan deciding not to meet Roland, and then getting in a fight with Cordelia, riding out onto the drop, and
runs into him.
Yeah, right into Roland.
There's some discussion about their situation as well as there's discussion about the larger goings on here.
Roland
as well.
Apologizes for how big of a dick he was and everything.
But there was talk about horses that kind of gave us an idea a little bit more of what's going on here.
Yes, exactly.
From what they're claiming, it seems like numbers are very, very skewed.
And it's not just the numbers either, but it's also like the birth rate, like how many muties and stuff like that. So all of that culminates with Roland and Susan kissing, and that's where we pick up right here in subchapter 9. Is they're the best kisses of Roland's life. He remembered every detail later, the yielding of her lips, the strong shape of her teeth under them, the fragrance of her breath, the sweet line of her body pressed against his, feeling her heart speeding under her breast. Then with his other hand, he strokes her hair at the temple. It's silk at the temple. He never forgets its texture. Then she was standing away, her face flaming with blush and passion. They kissed so passionately that it had drawn blood at the corner of her mouth. Her hand went to her lips, her bosom rising and falling as if she had ran a race. Between them ran a current like nothing Roland had ever felt in his life. It ran like a river and shook like a fever. Susan says no more. If he really loves her, then don't let her dishonor herself. She made a promise, and whatever might come later after the promise is fulfilled, if he still wanted her, then she kind of just like trails off there when she says that.
Yeah.
Roland says he would wait forever, but he would do anything except stand aside and watch her go with another man. She says if he loves her, then go away from her. He says another kiss, and she steps forward at once. Her face turned up to him, and he understood in that moment he could do whatever he wanted with her. And I just paused right here. Here's a real test for Roland.
Yeah.
Like
a 14-year-old Roland.
Yeah, a 14-year-old Roland with a woman that he's obsessed with.
Yeah.
From the moment that he met her and everything. They flirted a little bit. They've had a falling out. They've come back together. and kisses. And like Roland says here, like this is, I kind of get the feeling that it's not Roland at 14 saying this. It's Roland remembering it, telling the quartet later on. We got to remember, Roland's sitting around a fire with Eddie, Jake, Susanna, and Oi, telling them the story.
Maybe a crow or two in the sky.
No, stop that. No. And that's why the phrase I feel the king puts in there is sometimes easy to miss, is that he says it's the best kisses of his life. He doesn't forget how her hair feels, ever, the texture of it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's adult Roland talking to us through the quartet there, letting us know, like,
yeah.
Oh.
Well, that kind of goes to my note. I said a few instances of Roland saying he would remember an aspect of this the rest of his life. One might find that a bit dramatic or melodramatic, especially considering how long Roland seems to have lived. But we don't. But really, don't we all remember our first kiss, including details like smell, location, or what song was playing, if there was a song playing? I feel like that's like the first kiss is a pretty big thing. So I think most of us probably remember very small and minute details.
Absolutely.
No matter how long ago it was. So as much as I want to just be like, you're being a drama queen, Roland, like, no, that's probably legit. This is probably his first kiss outside of family members.
Yeah, exactly. So we go on, and Roland is thinking to himself that he could make Susan his mistress like Matron had done with his own mother. The thought broke his passion apart, like coals that fell in a bright shower, winking out one by one in a dark bewilderment. His father's acceptance, I have known for 2 years. It's on a separate line. It's italicized in the book. Was in many ways the worst part of what had happened to him this year. How could he love her or any girl in the world when such evils of the heart seemed necessary and might even be repeated? Yet he did love her. Instead of the passionate kiss, he instead kisses the corner of her mouth, tasting her blood. Roland's trick here works better than thinking about baseball. Like, just think about your mom. Like, I guess that with everything going on.
Yeah, I don't think it's the mom so much.
Well, no, like the relationship with Martin and his mom. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
And that just showing
it's like a bucket of ice water.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was kind of interesting the way that King describes it: a bright shower of like coals that fell in a bright shower, winking out one by one in a dark bewilderment. It took me a second, but I'm like, okay, is that coals in a fire, or is that coals like shooting stars? Maybe, like they're winking out one by one as they fall, because it says that they fall. So that just kind of like, I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's kind of like up for interpretation there. Like, which way are we talking about it here? But Roland, my other note here, Roland showing his strength to resist, to not do what he wants right then and there.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And my note is I love that we're seeing him, that he's still coping with this multi-layered trauma of the affair. Obviously, that's kind of the inciting incident of all this entire story. But ultimately, it's easy to kind of forget that, like, this isn't years later. You know, he still probably hasn't fully processed any of this.
This is months, not even a year.
I don't even know if it's months. I think it might be weeks. So.
Well, we have travel time. We gotta account for that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not a spoiler to say we're going to be talking about that, and I think that we're only talking weeks. I don't think months. I think months would be overstating it.
Haven't we had a month at least since they arrived?
A few weeks, 3 weeks from the arrival dinner.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Either way, it's very fresh.
Yeah.
And
it's a new wound.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, very new wound. Probably hasn't had any time to scab over yet.
Yeah. And so going forward, Roland closes his eyes as her hand strokes the back of his neck. Susan whispers in his ear that she wouldn't hurt Olive Thorne for the world, no more than she would hurt him. But it's too late for it to be put right. She thanks him for not taking what he could have from her, and she will always remember that and how it was to be kissed by him. It was the best thing to ever happen to her. He says he will remember too. He watches her swing back into the saddle, remembering the night they had met and the flash of leg in the dark. He says her name and she says, "No, please." And he stands back somehow. She says, "This is our secret." Yes, Roland agrees. Then she says that he must stay away from her and she will stay away from him. Roland says if they can, and she says that they must, and rides away. Roland stands watching her go. Even after she was out of sight, he still stands watch.
Yeah.
And I just have my one note. This is all I thought my first time reading through it. I still think it every time I read it. I was like, this cannot end well. There is no good here, right?
Yeah, it's like, what are the chances that they avoid each other the rest of this story?
Yeah, like that. There's no chance, right?
Indeed. They're both children. Children aren't necessarily known for their disciplines. So,
Nope.
I mean, hell, there's a lot of adults that don't have discipline
No.
in situations like this. I mean,
No.
how many affairs and stuff do you hear about where it's like the person knows they shouldn't be doing it, but they still do.
And there's times even where they say that, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, and yet they still do it. You know?
Yeah. And so my note now, this is melodrama of children for sure. The I will always remember this and whatnot. This just screams like over the top melodrama that only teenagers can come up with.
Very, very Dawson Creek-esque.
Yeah. And like I'm not poo-pooing King's writing because children are that way. Like,
no, it is.
Teenagers are that way. You know, they're always the most like, you're about to be in for it yourself here when your daughter has her her heart broken for the first time and it's the worst day of her life and she'll never recover and it's just. I mean, and
it's not bad writing at all when I say Dawson Creek.
I know. I just want to make it clear that that's what I'm talking about. Is like this is a truthfully written, but it's something that only children
absolutely
act like this with this kind of.
Unfortunately, there are some adults who do.
Yeah, there are some people who their maturity sticks with their shoe size more than their age. So that is true for sure.
That's it for Subchapter 9. Nice, short, and sweet one.
Yeah, and I have a bit of a shorter one as well, but we do have a long one that'll make up for it.
I noticed that. Like when I was doing my homework this morning, I was like, "Oh man, this one's pretty lengthy, isn't it?"
Yeah, the last one.
Yeah,
Chapter 1 of Subchapter 1 of Chapter 8 is quite girthy.
Yeah.
So, but let's go ahead on into Subchapter 10 here. So Avery and his deputies were sitting in front of the sheriff's office / jail when Mr. Stockworth and Mr. Heath, the latter of which had that idiotic bird skull still mounted on his saddle, walked by at a steady pace. The noon bell had rung about 15 minutes before, so Avery figured that they were on their way to lunch. Could be to the mill bank or to the rest, which actually served a decent noon meal, popkins and such. Avery liked something more filling, like half a chicken or a haunch of beef, which I just love that, a haunch of beef.
A haunch of beef.
Heath gave them a wave and a grin and said, "Good day, gents. Long life, gentle breezes. Happy siestas." They waved back and returned his smile. So
yeah.
I do love Mr. Cuthbert. I love how this chapter is from the perspective of the sheriff and his goons. So the only names we hear for the boys here is the fake names.
Yeah.
It's not Cuthbert and Alain.
No.
And, it's because it's from their perspective. So I kind of appreciate that. I don't know if we've necessarily had scenes with the townsfolk, but it's always been when the boys are not necessarily around. So now to have a scene with them both involved and we're taking the other side's point of view, it's interesting.
It's probably the first time we've had that, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
'Cause I think there's some other scenes, certainly some of the scheming after the dinner where they had that meeting at the sheriff's like whatever office, and they talked and kind of recapped whatever. So we've certainly had scenes like that, but I don't think we've ever had it where they've been in the same area.
Right.
And usually if they're in the same area, we're taking the boys' side of on it. So the lookout never ceases to make me smile. It's just so ridiculous, and I want one.
Oh, same. That's my note. Just same. 100%.
Oh man. Also good to see.
we do rabbit's foot. Can we do rook skulls?
Yeah. I do think I've seen some out there too for sale.
Have you?
Dark Tower wise, yeah. Also, good to see that bars and pubs have good food in this world as well. Seems like maybe that's a universal maxim there.
My note is just simply, why is bar pub food so good? Why?
It just is.
It's witchcraft, isn't it?
It might be. And one thing I'll always say, one of the axioms that I've come to believe 100% is if you're ever in a strange place, always look for a distillery first, because that'll have the best food you'll ever have, and then second, go look for bars and pubs. But distilleries, for some reason, can't miss.
I've never eaten at a distillery.
Really?
Nope, not once.
Yeah, I've had a few in a few different cities and stuff, and every time it's been delicious.
I just looked it up online. Crow skull for sale. There's one on Etsy for $20. That's it?
You know what I should look for is see if they have a 3D model somewhere. See if it's something I can 3D print.
Can you 3D print a skull? Okay, go ahead.
I know there's human skulls on 3D printing, which is always real fun. So going on here, once the boys were out of sight, Dave said that they had spent all morning in the piers counting nets and incredulously asked if any of them believed that. And again, it's incredulity. It's not that they don't believe that that's their counting, but it's more like, oh my God, can you believe those idiots are over there counting nets?
Yeah.
Avery said that he did, and he let out a noisy pre-lunch fart. So good old Stephen King and his 5-year-old boy style of writing here. It always pops through, it seems like, in his writings on occasion. George said that if not for the Traveler's Rest incident, he'd think that they were a pack of fools. Avery said that Avery said that he didn't think that the boys would mind them thinking that. So very sharp on Avery. I don't think we've given him enough credit necessarily.
Yeah.
Some in town had started calling them the affiliation brats or little coffin hunters. Do you think anyone says that with the big coffin hunters are around?
No. No, they do not. They know what almost happened to Shimi.
Yeah, or the bartender that got pistol whipped.
Yeah.
Stanley. Avery didn't know what to make of that. He had settled it down between the two groups, and Reimer had given him a commendation and a piece of gold for his efforts. Avery said that Dave thought them soft when they arrived, and he asked what he thought now. Dave said that they were harder than he suspected. Avery agrees in his thoughts. He doesn't speak out loud here, but he thinks to himself that he agrees, and told himself that hard did not necessarily mean smart. He then said aloud that he was hungry and stood up, ripping another loud fart. Dave and George looked at each other, and George waved his hand in front of his face. Avery said more room out than in and told the deputies to come along. Time for lunch.
Let's go eat. Because that's going to help your appetite to smell and the big windbags farts.
Yeah. He is quite the gaseous character
Yeah.
here. So my notes here, we've been clued in from the boys that they intend to appear very meticulous and take their time on what doesn't really matter. It seems it is working, at least for Dave, because he's kind of buying in, like, they're still over there counting nets. Like, I can't believe this. Also, George points out what we have discussed. The boys had some camouflage of youth and everything else, but the showdown at the Traveler's Rest blew that up. Although Avery thinks to himself that hard doesn't mean smart, so maybe they might still be getting underestimated by people in town.
Actually, that's what my note ties in with yours. I didn't know where to put it, so I figured I'd go after these two. I wonder if counting nets, which Dave seems to think is foolish, kind of building back up their camouflage as harmless young fellas, a little bit like soft in the head. They're counting nets. Can you believe that? They're counting nets. How is that going to help, and everything? I wonder if that's kind of done on purpose. And we get a little bit more hints at that in the next subchapter, actually.
Yeah, indeed. Also, Reimer gave Avery a commendation and a payoff for diffusing the conflict, which is interesting, especially because we know that Reimer is one of the key traitors aligned with Jonas. We've had that exposed already. So, just kind of an interesting little subchapter. It's a short one, but that one's over. But yeah, it's definitely cool to have a check-in on the townsfolk, specifically the law enforcement element of the townsfolk, and kind of see where they... where their minds are at in all this. So, but yes, they have certainly lost some of their camouflage, though.
Yeah.
Because the showdown of the Traveler's Rest has kind of revealed them.
I wonder if it's only like crafty people, like the sheriff is like, yeah, they're hard, but they're not necessarily smart. But he didn't call them dumb.
Yeah.
But Dave is just like, maybe they're harder than they were, but he's just kind of like wishy-washy about it. He doesn't know which way to go.
Yeah.
But Jonas wasn't fooled.
No.
Jonas absolutely was not fooled. Depape wasn't fooled. Reynolds wasn't fooled. People who actually know what hardness and smart, intelligence is are not fooled, which I think is interesting. That's what I'm saying is like the camouflage of mindless counting useless things is kind of building back up the camouflage a little bit with the less intelligent of the town folks and stuff like that. It's kind of maybe working a little bit on Sheriff Avery. It's absolutely working on Dave and the other one.
Yeah. It'll never work on Jonas.
But it'll never work on Jonas, right?
Like the other two.
Like Jonas is hardly mentioned at all in these 4 subchapters that we're covering.
Yeah.
A lot more in the one that we're going to get to here in a second. But I just know Jonas isn't fooled.
No, and
there's nothing they're doing that's going to fool him.
Like Reynolds and Depape, I would say there's a chance that they could be fooled again, just because I just don't think there is experience. But like Jonas, he's too sharp. He's too crafty. Like he is never going to underestimate these boys again.
We've got that already from the little bit that we've had with Jonas. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. It's not like we spent a ton of time with Jonas seeing how intelligent he is and everything. It's just how well King's written the character to make us realize that this is not someone you want to mess with.
No, he's been shown to us to be pretty dangerous for
exactly.
sure. So, it's definitely interesting. Also, I did want to point out as well, just to remind everyone, because it's interesting we're taking these smaller bites like this, is the reason we know for sure that Reimer is one of the bigger traitors in this whole mess is because when they first arrived, there was a discussion about where do we want them to stay, and Jonas makes the decision, let's put them out at is it Bar K?
Bar K.
Because there's another is it like something H or whatever that we've talked about.
I cover it in this subchapter. Hold on, let me go down a little bit.
So I always get them confused because there's a couple different bars.
Rocking K is the ranch that they mention later.
Okay.
They mention it specifically.
Yeah. But
no, the Rocking H, and then they stay at the Bar K.
Yeah, and then so to my point though, Jonas made that decision, and then he said that he would hand it to Reimer, who would hand it to the mayor, who would then tell the boys this is where we set up for you guys. So it's like we kind of see the marionette thing that Jonas is controlling Reimer, which is kind of controlling the mayor, and we already know that Jonas is aligned with Farson. Like that's already been made clear as well.
And we kind of get the impression that the mayor is not top dog.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, Reimer is the power behind the throne, and Jonas is the power behind the throne. So. And
Jonas is pulling the strings on Reimer like a marionette, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. So we do have all that information already. So it is very interesting that Reimer paid Avery off, because it's like, how does that work? Like, what's the benefit there? Like to
keep the peace. It keeps it from drawing more attention from the affiliation is what I think would be the reason why Reimer, hey, you know what?
So self-preservation,
because we do not want the spotlight on us right now. We don't want the affiliation noticing us. If Avery hadn't de-escalated the situation and it had come to shooting and one of or more of the boys gets hurt/killed, the affiliation might be coming in and enforce, and if that happens, we're all fucked. Yeah. So that's a hey, good job.
Yeah, the spotlight coming in.
Does it also? So you have to refresh me because I wasn't here for those particular episodes. Avery's in with Reimer and Jonas, right?
Say that one more time.
Sheriff Avery is in the inner circle with. So he pays him as like, hey, good job, Yeah. But also to the town, if the people find out about the accommodation and the gold, they see it as Avery. Hey, Avery saved the day.
Peace,
Maybe you're raising Avery up a little bit in the town folks' eyes and everything to help elevate him, because if Avery ever has to do something with the boys, and per se arrest them or kill them or something like that, there's a little bit more stock into Avery. Hey, he already tried de-escalating the situation, Yeah. Look, we gave him accommodation and paid him for his good deed.
Yeah.
They just weren't having it. Maybe he's kind of building up a little bit of a defense.
Yeah.
If something goes down later. Reimer seems kind of like the scheming kind of guy that would do that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I will say Avery deserves nothing because he really didn't do anything.
No.
It was already to a complete stalemate by the time he showed up. Like
Jonas and Roland would have done that themselves in 5 minutes.
Yeah, because they kind of knew that both of them knew they were in no-win scenarios. Like there was no way to get out of that cleanly.
Yes.
So it's like, but still, it sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that's Avery. Heil Albie, welcome. May you have twice a number.
Yeah, welcome.
So now we're jumping over to subchapter 11.
Yeah, and it's we're right here. We're at the Bar K bunkhouse, and it says that the sunset isn't great there because it's built on in an L pattern, a capital L, and the porch is built on the inside of the short arm. So you got the whole long building blocking the view.
Yeah.
Left for the boys were 2 rockers and a wooden crate with an unstable board that had been nailed to the back of it, making a little makeshift seat. This night, Alain was in a rocker and Cuthbert was on the box seat, which he seemed to fancy. The lookout was on the railing. Alain was tired, and even though they had both bathed in the stream, he thought he still smelled like fish and seaweed. They had spent the day counting nets, which we had already discussed.
Smelling like fish and seaweed.
Not good.
I'm not a big seafood fan, but I think even seafood fans aren't a fan of that smell.
No one likes the smell of fish, right?
Yeah. Like, because, ultimately, truthfully, like, when it comes to, like, people that are into, like, the culinary side, usually you don't smell good fish. It doesn't smell. Like, usually what you're associating the smell is usually when it's not as good.
Yeah. You're like, that's good. But when it's Oh god, that's bad.
Because I've even seen that in Mexico. I remember going to one of the seafood restaurants. I'm like, I'm not the biggest seafood fan, but it's like it was just startling to me where it was like, oh god, this doesn't smell anything like what I'm used to in Utah, which is a landlocked place.
Not a place reputable with a great reputation for great seafood.
No. And suddenly here I am on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, and it's like, oh my god, this actually like, and it was even though I'm not a seafood fan, I ate some and I was like, oh. It's not bad. It's way
Not
better
terrible.
Better than everything I've ever had in Utah. So
Makes sense though with it being Utah.
Yes.
So they spend the day counting nets, like we already talked about. Hey, he wasn't. Alain wasn't adverse to hard work, or even if it was monotonous, he just doesn't like pointless work, which this was. Hambry was split into two parts: the fishers and the horse breeders. There was nothing with the fishers, and 3 weeks told them all that. The answers were on the drop, which they had stayed away from on Roland's orders. So this, real fast, before we get into the notes, this is what I was talking about earlier, is like, maybe this is what the boys are doing on purpose. Maybe Roland's trying to build back up their camouflage a little bit. Oh, look, we got lucky. We're just counting nets. Our bad.
Didn't you discuss it last episode with Susan, though, where like their plan was to stay away from the drop as long as possible?
Yeah, they want to stay away from the drop as long as possible because they know that's where something is going on.
Yeah.
And Roland covers it a little bit better in a later part of this subchapter, where he says, we suspect something, we know some things, and we suspect other things.
Yeah.
And it's all pertaining to the drop. But I think that the camouflage, specifically what I'm talking about, I think Roland goes, ooh, we really kind of revealed ourselves a little bit at the Traveler's Rest. Now we got to build that back up a little bit. Kind of like resupply kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like build the image back up that, we're just,
but
whoops.
They also want to show like that they're being very meticulous.
Yes.
So that everyone that's watching them.
Why aren't they to the drop yet?
Well, no, they kind of know that, okay, they're taking their time, so they can kind of know that this is going to stretch out. This isn't like they're going to get done in a week.
Yes.
I think so, because they know that something's afoot here. And so when you make your enemy think that they've got plenty of time, that's you're putting your enemy at ease.
Then you're not putting your enemy in a corner where they have to react.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's an element of like not even just the camouflage, but also let's show them that we're being very, very meticulous.
Yes,
it's what they would expect of a bunch of kids that has forsaken themselves and now they're trying to make good. Exactly. So
they don't have to be hasty and do something.
Yeah. Also in the chat, Albie says, fun fact, I grew up in New Canaan.
Oh, hey.
And I Googled it, New Canaan, Connecticut. I did not know that was a thing.
Okay.
I love that. I wonder if there's any turtles there.
Say thank you, son. And then David also popped in.
Oh, hi, David. Welcome, everyone. So, I'm sorry, did you get to your notes then?
No, I haven't even got to my note yet. But, yeah, my note, again, we've already talked about this once, and we're going to do it again because it's brought up again. I fucking love the lookout.
Yeah, me too.
Like, it's just sitting on the railing.
Yeah, and that's my note. Me too. I especially find it super funny that he is moving the damn thing around. Like, it'd be one thing if he just had it on the horn of his saddle, and then when he takes his saddle off, he just, like, stores it near the saddle or whatever. Like, it's part of his tack, right?
Like, it's a Red Dead Redemption 2 thing. This is just a little trinket you can have hanging from your saddle. It's always there. You don't take it off and put it around your neck when you get off.
Because, in real life on, like, Red Dead, you have to take your saddle off, store it so your horse can, like, whatever. But then you just hang it near your saddle somewhere to where it's like, it's basically like fuzzy dice for a car.
Exactly.
Like, it's just,
you don't take the fuzzy dice and put it around your neck when you go in to eat.
Yeah. So
but that's what Cuthbert's doing here.
So like visualizing him like taking all of his stuff off his horse and then carrying or wearing the lookout to like, hey, we're gonna sit on the porch and we're gonna put it here. Like it just that is just the height of fucking humor to me. Like, it's just hilarious.
It's great.
And again, maybe this is one of those things that only a 14-year-old boy could really do, right?
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't take a person serious if this was an adult doing this, but the fact that it is just 14-year-old Cuthbert, I love it, and it endears me to Cuthbert quite a bit. I love him. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and then my note here, I said I just remember being curious about why they're staying away from the drop the first time reading. Just like, if you know something's up, you're here to investigate, right? Go investigate.
Yeah.
Like, I guess there's a little bit of a question on if that is actually what they're here for. But we get obvious proof less than the next page that, they're in communication with the affiliation, and they want to know if there's anything unusual happening.
Yeah. And my note is like kind of surprised because like for me, like I guess I kind of saw the strategy in it, kind of what we talked about earlier. Like you want to stay away from where you know the problem's at as long as you can, just so your enemy isn't riled.
The thing about
So-
that, though, that the reason why I'm curious about that is, and we're talking about 15-year-old Peter here,
Yeah.
first time reading, is that, well, you don't want to give him a chance to build up defenses, you know?
Yeah.
Get your army on their land and attack. Don't get your army to their land and then camp for a month and let them build up defenses and traps and figure out the best place to have a battle, because then you're at the disadvantage.
Yeah.
The element of surprise here is kind of the one thing that they had going for them, and they've lost that. So now you're going to wait? It just, first time reading it, it's like, you guys are putting yourselves at a severe disadvantage here.
David said Gilead truck nuts. I do need me a lookout, though. Did you find any 3D printed?
They have raven skulls, not crows, but ravens are just bigger versions of crows, right?
I guess.
I mean,
Still, I might have to look for one somewhere.
They
Even
have,
if even if I can't 3D print it, I want one.
they have them like masks where you can like fully 3D print, like it goes on like a full mask.
So, like the newer Pet Cemetery with those creepy kids with the fucking masks. I haven't watched it, but I saw the
or
trailers.
like the Court of Owls in Batman. They always have like the masks on.
And it's bird-like masks
Yeah.
that are just creepy to me. Like there's that
The famous
what is that? Like the Plague Doctor.
the Plague Doctor? Yeah.
like there's just something like unsettling about
It's
that.
very. If I saw something like that walking down the street, it's dark, it's a little bit foggy, and I see that walking. Nope, I'm noping out of there.
And to me, that's why, like Tahine-wise, I think the bird ones are the most terrifying.
yeah,
Like the other ones are creepy and unsettling, but the bird ones, there's just something about birds that just no thanks.
especially if their knees go the other way.
Yeah.
When the knees go the wrong way, that's where it.
Yeah. So going on, my other note here. One thing I find interesting is that they don't seem capable of figuring that out. That they have been beaten and trained by Court their whole lives, and despite Roland having taken his test, they're still equals with him. So the fact that they can't see the strategy kind of surprises me. Like just that, they're raised the same way Roland. Like yes, Roland had his test, but beyond that, they're the fucking same. Like yes, he earned his guns, but it's like outside of that, they've been in the same classes. They've had the same lessons.
Yeah.
They've had the same lumps from Court. They've had the same nights without dinner because of Court. Like it just feels to me they should be able to suss this out. I guess it's just kind of weird to me that like Roland's one that it's weird to me they're not on the same page where it's like, oh yeah, Roland, it makes total sense to like to chill and like let them be comfortable.
We're gonna come back to this because there is a specific part where that's called out. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah,
I want to revisit this note in a minute.
Yeah, it's just interesting
Okay.
to me because I think that it's easy for us to kind of get into the realm of like, oh, Roland's a gunslinger now, and we know Roland more from old Roland. So I feel like we can kind of elevate him as a character, but really, when you really think about it, he's no better than these two. Like he just kind of lucked or stumbled into winning his trial, and other than that, like. They've been in the same classes, so it's interesting to me. I don't know, but
No,
yeah,
and I really do want to circle back to this. So, pin in that, just for a minute. And my last note here is: have we seen things through Alain before? Like we've seen things through Cuthbert already,
yeah,
and Roland and Susan, and now Sheriff Avery. But I just don't remember us ever seeing through Alain before.
No, I think this is still pretty new. I don't think
Yeah.
we've even had a lot of exposure to Alain the same way we have Cuthbert.
Yeah.
So, but then again, yes, we're 30, almost 40% through this book, but at the same time, when you consider the Blaine stuff and all
At
the
the
others,
very
like,
beginning, yeah.
we're still kind of early in this flashback
Yes.
part of the story. So, it doesn't feel
Well, so far for the flashback, we have Susan going up to Rhea, Susan meeting Roland on the road, the dinner,
the welcome
dinner.
there's
And then that night of the welcome dinner is the showdown at the Traveler's Rest, and then we got a couple weeks fast forward, and we're here.
yeah.
So to your point, yeah, there's not a ton that seems to have been happening
yeah.
for us
That we've seen.
That we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. So, no, but I think that it's about time that you would start to see that. If this were a movie or a TV show, this is the point when you start to explore the other characters a little bit more. Yeah, exactly. And also, I do want to point out, I miss Rhea. Let's get Rhea. Let's get Rhea back in here, man. Rhea and Ermont. I miss them both.
No.
Stop it.
So moving on from that horrible thought,
I'm gonna start tracking it. There was no Rhea in this episode.
episodes without Rhea, book clubs without Rhea.
I'll have to get that. What is that? The witch from the Disney that's all raggedy and evil looking. It's one I always picture as Rhea. one of the classic Disney princesses, or
Like
witches.
the old one?
The old
Snow White?
nasty looking one.
Snow White?
Is that it?
There's a lot of witches in Snow White,
but
in Disney.
Which one looks the worst? Like, just looks old and
Like-
ragged and
long, crooked nose?
Yeah.
That's Snow White.
yeah. Okay, that's what I always
That's
picture.
the poison apple one.
So what I need to do is I need to get just a little like picture of her, and we'll just have her pop up on the screen when that pop up on the screen.
Oh, that's going to bring Disney down on us, though. Just got to do the silhouette.
Something.
She doesn't have a hat, though. She just has a hood.
Yeah.
So,
Rhea though.
Moving on from that horrible thought by Tad. Hashtag Tad is terrible. I don't think I hashtag Tad is terrible to you once last episode.
Really?
I don't think I did.
That seems wrong.
It does.
I feel like you probably did.
I got to make up for it this time, though. So the wind gusted, and they heard the thinny. Alan says, Alan in the chat is clouding my judgment. Alain says he hated the sound, and Cuthbert, uncharacteristically quiet, just says, aye. They were all speaking like that now, and Alain suspected that they would have Hambry on their tongues long after wiping its dust from their boots. I love that line.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but this little bit from Alain here makes me smile. He would be the one to think about them picking up some of their slang, just subconsciously, just like, oh yeah, we're all doing it. But he's the one that consciously is like, oh man, we're gonna be talking like this long after we're gone from this place.
Yeah.
That just fits his character to me.
Yeah. And personally, I've never experienced that. I've been around various accents at different points in my life, but I've never really picked any of them up, even temporarily. I see every so often, or I've met people or seen people online where they say that they'll watch a movie, and with someone, if they have a particularly strong accent, they find themselves echoing that for like a few days after watching the movie. Like, that's just alien to me. I mean, I guess this is way more full immersion than I've ever experienced.
Yeah, you've never moved to Canada and started to, talking like a Canadian.
Yeah, I just don't know if I would. Like, I don't know.
I'm one of those people that gets influenced by the stuff that he watches, like what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
So, I watch Letterkenny, which is about Canadians, and the way that they talk, for a month or so after I finish a rewatch of the show, I talk exactly like them. The insults are theirs and everything that they say in the show. So, it's just, I'm one of those people.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see. I also think it follows that Alain hates a thinny. It's a bit more supernatural, so I wonder if he's getting something through the touch.
That's very possible.
That the rest of them maybe aren't feeling. Like
Yeah.
they're all hearing an audible sound, but is he getting some sort of like psychic something from this? Like, because I mean, we all kind of know what effect it had on Roland. We've seen some stuff with the thinny in the present. I don't know. It just makes me wonder. Since Alain, we know, has more of the touch, it makes me wonder if some of the more supernatural things are a little bit more hinky for him.
Yeah. David says, so I'm mostly blind and haven't seen Disney movies since I was little. I actually forgot what witches are supposed to look like. The one in the book is actually what I think of when I think of a witch. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she fits. I mean, we haven't really seen her. I'm trying to remember if they animated her in any of the comics or anything. Either way, there's pictures we all have of her in our mind.
Yeah.
And I think it's just quintessential witch for sure.
It's just gross, is what it is. Long nose, warts. That's like the typical.
No green skin, though. I don't picture the Wizard of Oz element. Although that's the voice I've largely, until Frank, actually voiced her in the audiobooks. But, early on when I was just reading the books, I always pictured the voice from Wizard of Oz.
The Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah, that's what I always heard in my head. So,
gotcha. So, moving on from behind. What?
David says, well, Peter, my only advice I have is don't watch Roots.
Don't watch Roots. Wow.
Almost made me shoot water through my nose there.
We almost had a spit take.
That's great. I love that.
I'm feeling dumb. I don't get it. I've never seen Roots.
Well, I mean, you know what the premise of Roots is.
No, I don't.
Like, at all?
No. What's Roots?
It's like a story of a slave that goes through the whole. It's the original thing was a guy wrote a book because he did research on his ancestors.
Okay.
And then they made this miniseries with LeVar Burton and stuff, and it's like Kunta Kinte, and he's kind of him going through the whole thing. So you've got the very stereotypical speech patterns of like black slaves.
Okay.
So if you were to watch that,
I would talk. I get okay. Brought it back. We were talking about witches, so I thought it was something to do with that. I'm not getting it. But the speech patterns, me copying the speech patterns. Okay. Peter's a little slow today.
God.
Forgive me.
I saw the steam coming out of your ears there.
I
You're
was
trying
so
to-
confused for a second of what that has to do with witches. I was like, what? Like,
I'm surprised you didn't like, because I remember watching Roots in like grade school. Like
I was
they-
never shown it.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones that, like, I've heard of it so much, like, Roots this and Roots that, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is. Like, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what grade it was, but I remember a teacher having the VHSs and having us watch it. It was like a mini series, I think, so it was a little bit longer. It wasn't just a movie, but
It's obviously, like, rated PG then. It's not like
it was
a
on
rated...
like, I want to say it was like on PBS or something.
Oh,
so,
it's
yeah.
not even like a full, like, authentic,
No,
like,
there's
like 12 Years a Slave
no,
kind of thing.
there's some
yeah.
brutality though.
Is there really?
Yeah, there. Like, I don't remember specifically, but I know at one point they cut his foot off because he ran away.
Oh,
and
jeez.
stuff. So yeah, there's it's and maybe it's not like blood and craziness,
But
but
they,
like
that you know that the foot was cut off.
Yes,
like,
yes.
like you see the shadow of the axe raised up on the wall.
I want to say it was like younger elementary too. Like I want to say like maybe 2nd to 4th grade, probably in that range
wow.
somewhere. So it's been a long, long time
Okay.
since I've seen it. But yeah, indeed, good one, David. You almost had me shoot water out my nose.
Spit take.
That well, not even spit take as much. Like when you laugh and it comes out your nose. Like that's,
Oh, okay.
And luckily, water would be less painful than like soda
Oof.
or whiskey.
Soda is the worst whenever you have that go up your nose.
I don't know. Whiskey's pretty bad.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
I'm not a huge whiskey guy.
You
so.
should never drink whiskey around Hayden, and when he can potentially make you laugh, because that's what'll happen.
He has a knack for doing that, though. That's
Yes.
the problem. So I should just never drink around Hayden, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't say that,
Your words, not mine.
but I know we just tangented and took this train off the rails here. But let's go ahead and
That's what we do here at Dark Tower Palaver. Tangents brought to you by Tad and Peter. And
Dark Tangents Palaver.
And Dark Tangents Palaver. And in this case, David. Thank you for that one, David. So moving up, from behind them in the bunkhouse, a more pleasant sound of pigeons cooing comes to them. And then from the side of the house, there comes the sound of which Cuthbert was unconsciously had been listening for. And as they sit watching the sunset, Cuthbert had been unconsciously listening for this, which was horses' hoofs, rushers' hoofs to be specific. Roland comes around the corner, riding easily, and something happens that struck Alain as oddly portentous, a kind of omen, as a bird lands on Roland's shoulder. He doesn't jump, just looks around and holds out his hand, says "Heil," and the pigeon jumps into his hand. Bound to its leg was a capsule. Roland removes it, opens it, and takes out a tiny slip of paper. Roland holds out the pigeon. Alain says "Heil" and holds out his hand, and the pigeon flies to him. As Roland dismounts, Alain takes the pigeon inside and puts it in the cage and takes out another pigeon. He gets an envelope which has a number of blank strips and a paper and a tiny storage pen from under Bert's pillow. The pen has its own small reservoir of ink that doesn't need to be dipped. He takes it and one strip of paper back out to the porch. Roland and Cuthbert were studying the unfolded strip. On it were some shapes. I completely forgot. You didn't grab a picture of that, did you?
I didn't. No.
Okay.
The ones in the book, a lot of them are so like bad. Like not. They're also like low res and
Yeah.
stuff that a lot of times it doesn't really.
The best way I could describe the shapes is they look like Tetris pieces.
Yeah, that's pretty
geometry shape kind of things.
Yeah.
And so my note here, secret messages, very interesting for boys who were just sent to be out of the way. Like, what's the communication for then?
I mean, to me, I think it makes total sense. Like, it's your way of keeping tabs, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember, like when I was a young kid, having some of my first sleepovers, and like
Sure.
parents wanted you to call in. It's like even
Call
though,
me before you go to bed. Call me when you wake up.
yeah, it's not like over the top, but it was more just
Mm-hmm.
like whatever. I think this is the same kind of thing. You're going to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of your kids, right? You send them out to be kind of out of the way, say, protect
Yeah.
Roland from Martin, but you're still going to try to keep in contact with them. So
Right.
that's how I viewed it. But I love that Cuthbert recognizes the hoofbeats of Rusher. I suppose that horses may sound different, but to my untrained ear, I would never consider the fact you'd be able to
Yeah.
discern a horse from its sound of its hoofbeats.
Just like you can tell the difference between mom's car pulling into the driveway and dad's car pulling into the driveway.
Yeah, exactly. And
Kinda
it would
like
make
that.
sense that they would know it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not something I've never considered not being around horses in my life.
You've had that when you were a kid, right? You hear a car pulling in, you're like, nope, that's dad. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in trouble. I didn't clean my room. Something like that.
Yeah, indeed. And then my next note, of course, Alain is the one seeing signs and portents and things as well. Just fits him. But come on, there's nothing scary about a bird.
Stop it. Not a pigeon, but other birds, yes.
No, birds are happy, lovable creatures. Hitchcock taught us that. Also interesting to have carrier pigeons in a world starved for paper.
Yeah.
I know they talked about it was a very small strip and stuff, so it's not like this is like nothing that we've seen necessarily undermines the idea that paper is scarce in this world. But it is always interesting for me. I always kind of note when we see paper being used, and it's like something like this. It makes me wonder: are they like, are they reusing this paper?
Well, no, let's not confuse Roland's modern time with paper being scarce with this time where it doesn't seem like it is that scarce. I mean, Susanna has a full sheet of paper that she uses to write to Roland last episode.
Yeah, but it mentioned that
it's expensive. It's worthwhile. But if Susan and Cordelia, who just barely got off of being destitute, can afford paper, it may not be like super expensive.
I think it was
sacred.
I think it was carried over from her dad, and he would have been a lot more well off being like the head of the Horsemen's Association. Because she said that the only thing next to wasting horse flesh is wasting paper. So it's it is still valuable. And
it is very valuable. I just don't think that it's scarce. Is what I'm saying. I don't think it's like necessarily like a finite resource that there's not much left of it, and especially when you're talking about Gilead having probably a larger stockpile than Magus, and we see that normal townsfolk have paper. So
yeah, I don't know. It's always interesting to me though.
And so Alain asks what it says. He hadn't picked up the code as fast as Roland and Cuthbert. And then a direct quote from the book here. Farson moves east, Cuthbert reads. Force a split. One big, one small. Do you see anything unusual? He looked at Roland almost offended. Anything unusual? What does that mean? And that's the end of the quote, the direct quote for me. Roland shakes his head. He didn't know. He doubted that the men who sent the message did either. Cuthbert asks what they should write, if they should write the same. Roland nods. Alain says that they had seen unusual things. At one ranch, he can't remember the name. Cuthbert pipes in and says the Rocking H. That's the one we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
There were oxen. Alain goes on to say he had never even seen oxen except in books. Roland asks if anyone saw him seeing the oxen, and Alain says he doesn't think so. There were a few drovers out, 3 or 4. Cuthbert cuts in again and says, 4. Alain goes on to say that they paid him no attention. Even when they see things, the people of the town don't seem to think that they see things. Like they're kind of dunderheads kind of thing.
It makes me wonder, are they really not seeing it? Or are they pretending not to see it?
Who?
The suspicious part of me, the townspeople.
The townspeople?
And they're saying like, hey, even when we notice things, nobody notices we're noticing it. It's like, there's part of me that just tilts my head a bit and goes, are they really not noticing? Or are some people...
Or are they pretending not to notice and then reporting
to Avery.
Yeah,
and,
hoping to get a gold coin themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives me a little bit of nerves. I didn't have that in my notes, but it just makes me nervous because it's like, it feels like there's a game being played here. And I don't know. We shouldn't underestimate the townsfolks the same way they shouldn't underestimate these boys. So it makes me wonder.
It's a two-way street to be underestimated.
Yeah, exactly. So part of me wonders how many of these these things have been reported back to the people.
Exactly. And so like Roland's saying like that's how it's got to stay is they can't be seen. We can't be seen seeing too much and knowing too much by the townsfolk. But Roland has this kind of absence on his face as if his thoughts were far away on something else. I wonder what that could be. He turned to look at the sunset and something on Roland's collar caught Alain's attention. He snatched it so fast not even Roland noticed. Alain thinks to himself that not even Bert could have done that, and he's all kind of like smug about it. Alain begins to question the choice of saying the same message, and Roland cuts him off saying the same message and that they need to be patient. Roland says they know certain things. This is what I was saying earlier. They know certain things and suspect other things, but why would Farson come all this way just for horses? So they wait.
Yeah.
So this is where I wanted to circle back to what you were saying with the question with the boys is that if this is just them getting out of the way and everything like that, then why are they sending messages about Farson's movements? It seems like they actually do need someone here reconning Magus and that the boys are actually part of something. Maybe they have scouts in every area of the kingdom kind of thing where it's like, okay, everyone report in. Anyone see anything? No? Okay.
And see, to me, like I view this differently. I view this as they legitimately are being put here to get Roland out of the way, but they do have communication with the parents. But now that Farson's people are moving around, and I think that's kind of where who was it, Alain that kind of freaked out, or no, Cuthbert that freaked out. Why would they ask that? Why did they ask if we know something? Because I think now suddenly it's like, well, wait a minute, with the way they're moving, there is a chance that they could, maybe the boys are seeing something down where they're at. Yeah. And so I think this is kind of, and how I view this is kind of unexpected. And now the parents may be using them as scouts, but I don't think that was ever the intention. Because
that's where I'm slightly going to disagree with you, because I don't think this is the parents writing to them. I think this is gunslingers. I don't think this is Steven.
Oh, it is.
I think this is intelligence. Like, you're going to have an intelligence branch of the gunslingers. Steven's not going to be the one out here writing coded messages to this group to be in touch with Roland and Alain and
I think so.
I think he sent them away, and I think he has more important things to focus on. Now, maybe he's talking to someone who's talking to Roland, but I think Steven's got a way bigger fish to fry in Farson than to worry about what Roland's getting up to in Magus. I think that Steven truly may honestly be sending his son to be out of the way and not get killed. But as for why they're asking for information and stuff like that, that doesn't seem like something Steven would be worried about. Because if that was the case, if there's any threat whatsoever of Farson going there, Roland would be all the way across the fucking continent. Because Roland is supposed to be out of the way.
Yeah.
Why would you send Roland to a hotspot then that you need to be gathering intelligence on?
But I don't know. Is there any quieter spots than this? I feel like the reason they picked this place is because it's kind of
It is the quietest spot of
and
the
it's
hodgepodge.
And now suddenly, you get Farson movements, and it's like, oh shit. And I think that's why kind of Cuthbert freaks out a little bit, because it's like, wait, why would they ask us that?
Yeah.
Because I think now suddenly they're privy to the fact. I mean, they already kind of know something may be up, but it's like now that they're seeing, now they're getting intelligence from outside to say, hey, Farson's on the move. Are you guys seeing anything? Now suddenly that puts alarm bells in their heads, where it's like, wait, are we gonna see Farson's people soon?
Yeah.
You guys are scattering him, his people are on the move. I don't know. I just feel like suddenly that this is the heat getting turned up a tiny bit, where it's like, we already kind of know there's something going on here, but now suddenly whoever it is, whether it be whatever, I've always viewed it as their parent, and the dads. I'm not talking the moms, but the gunslinger dads that are, we're going to keep in contact with our kids. Two of them aren't even gunslingers. One of them's a 14-year-old gunslinger apprentice. Yeah. So that's kind of how I've always viewed it. But it's
with how hands-off Steven is with Roland's upbringing. He's trained by court. He's trained by their teacher. I just spaced on his name.
Fanny,
and everything like that. It just doesn't seem like Steven would necessarily be hands-on in this situation either.
Those are all protected in the realm of Gilead, though.
Sure.
This is the first time that they're sending the kids out to
Well, this is still the kingdom. This is still Magus. It's still it's like the difference between sending someone from Washington D.C. to Montana. It's still the United States kind of thing. But I think that the communication stuff like that, I just don't see Steven taking the time to write a note in code.
I mean, he's not writing,
rolling it up.
He's not writing it. He's probably having Cuthbert's dad write it. Because
even Roland says here, Roland points to it, is that Roland says that the people who wrote the note probably don't even know why they're asking this. And that's what I'm saying, is I think that there's a go-between for Steven and the dads.
Could be.
That are going between.
I viewed that they may not even know, in terms of, they just know that Farson's people are on the move. They don't know that they're coming to Magus or anything. And I think that's how I viewed what Roland was saying, is well, they may not even know why they're asking, but they're just asking because we happen to be in an area that very well could cross paths with where Farson's people are moving. So if 100 Farson people came riding through town, this pigeon comes in and it's oh yeah, we just saw 100 fucking people ride through this town. It would then give them indication of I guess for me, I didn't, but then again, his dad did kind of make some references to the pink one.
Right.
So they're I don't think that he was completely I'm sending these kids to Disneyland and it's completely safe.
I'm sending them to Wyoming, where there is no one lives there. It's the smallest out-of-way place that I can get them.
Yeah.
It does still feel no, I'm sending them to Colorado, where there is a trade route, and there is, a little bit more. I'm thinking Western expansion for the United States.
Yeah.
Where you got to go through certain areas, but other areas you just completely avoid. North Dakota would be a better example than Wyoming. There's nothing in North Dakota. No one goes to North Dakota. That's not where we go, and everything like that.
Sorry to the two listeners that are in
No, I mean literally in like the
No,
Western expansion and everything. Like
yeah.
you would go straight across Kansas and Nebraska into Wyoming and Colorado, and then either through Utah or Idaho up to Oregon or California. I'm talking about like that pioneer expansion west. What I'm picturing is Roland's dad sent them there to Magus because it's quiet, it's out of the way, it's peaceful.
Yeah.
And then he's going to have people like, hey, write my son once a week and make sure everything's good. And if he says anything weird, report it back to me.
Yeah.
Because the line, and I almost wrote it down word for word, is he doubted if the men who sent the message did either. The men who sent the message. That's not, I doubted even if our fathers knew what. That's a
Could
difference there for me.
Yeah, it could
is
be.
that-
I've never considered that. I mean, again, yes, I don't think that like Steven's actually writing it down.
Right.
He's a man too important. He's going to dictate it, but ultimately, it's his. He's behind it
Right.
all. Like he's going to have regular reports on these exchanges. He's probably telling what needs to be said or asked of the boys.
Yeah.
because it's his because ultimately he's responsible. The other two dads would hold him responsible if these three kids got killed.
Because I picture it, the other way of putting this, maybe a better way of putting this, is I picture this as the head of the FBI. You have your cells out in different places investigating stuff and everything like that.
Yeah.
They don't report to the head of the FBI. They report to a branch manager or a division leader who then reports to the head of the FBI.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm thinking like the structure maybe of Gunslingers is that it's not going to be Steven picks up the phone and calls Roland directly, via pigeon,
Yeah.
and says, "Hey, what's going on out there? We have this going on. Is that what you're seeing?" I picture Steven going, "Hey, send a message out to all outposts that."
I agree. I don't see Steven spending the time to write it. No, I never thought that.
And that's what I'm kind of. That's kind of what I was picturing when you said the parents are keeping tabs on them, and I'm like,
yeah.
no, I
Because
don't.
the first person that's hearing back when those pigeons come back is Steven, and then the other two gunslingers that are, Cuthbert and
I
Alain's
think I
dads.
think it's just going to go up the chain of command, kind of thing. Like, is this something worth bothering Steven about? No, everything's good. No, we don't need to report it then.
It's the parent thing, not necessarily intelligence. Because again, I don't think any of them think that there's truly intelligence to be had.
Yeah.
I don't think these guys were sent here to be an outpost for the FBI. These guys are sent there to be like whatever. But now circumstances are
This
suddenly,
is the Alaska assignment. Get them the fuck out of the
yeah.
way.
But now suddenly, oh shit, something's popping off in
Yeah.
Alaska, and like let's see if they know anything.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of like a happenstance where it's like they were sent here to be whatever, and it's like and I think from Steven's perspective, it's probably like if they were to find something, great. But ultimately, I don't care. I'm just getting them out of the way.
let me know if they find something.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything's business as
But
usual.
now suddenly, like they're a little bit more interested because, like, with troop movements the way they are, like,
Will you ask them if they've seen anything?
Have they seen
Let
anything?
me know if they say anything, all right? I'm going to be over here taking care of, the fucking war.
yeah,
The Churchill and Roosevelt and, no, is it Roosevelt or Eisenhower? Eisenhower and Stalin. And we're going to be over here planning, this shit.
Yeah.
You let me know if they say anything.
yeah. Indeed.
But anyways, we got way tangent on that one. It's your note right here.
So Farson's movements are enough that their fathers are asking about this area. So I guess in their minds, this is not as quiet a corner as they had hoped. And
Yeah.
again, so I think this is kind of a surprise where it's like, uh-oh.
Which is what our kind of shock was very early on when we found out that there's a plot going on here. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
weren't they sent here to be out of the way?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
But something's up. And
Yeah.
and then it doesn't seem like anything's been told to the fathers or whoever's they're reporting back. I don't think anyone knows except for the three boys that there is something else going on. And I think that's why the other boy, or at least Alain, is challenging Roland a little bit, where it's like, are we really not going to say anything?
Yeah.
Like
We've
there's-
seen shit.
Yeah, there's
And,
shit.
and to go along with your next note, go ahead and read that next note so we can talk about it.
Yeah, so oxen are near mythical in this world, and they have some here. That's wild.
Like, that's worth reporting even if you're just getting out of the way. Like, holy fuck, these guys got oxen.
Yeah.
That'd be like us calling, like if we're an FBI outpost and we get sent to Alaska and we call up and be like, yeah, there's a giant three-toed bear here we thought was extinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have like 80 of them.
Does it have a large dish on its head?
No, three-toed bears were the ones that were like 20 feet tall,
Yeah.
like giant grizzly bears. No, it does not have a satellite dish on its head.
Indeed. What do you got here, note-wise?
So I did you get nervous by the sudden change of who is speaking more? I would have expected Bert to be the questioning one and Alain to be quiet. It's just kind of unnerving when characters suddenly start doing the opposite. Alain's the quiet, pensive one. Bert's the loudmouth, boisterous. Like literally in the previous subchapter, G'day, gents. Long days and pleasant nights. Hope you have a nice siesta. And then here it's just one word.
Yeah.
One word.
Yeah.
2 words. Like, it's kind of weird that they switched roles.
Yeah, and Chris in the chat says Shardik?
Yeah.
Indeed. Don't we all love the idea of giant robotic bears? And for me, my answer to that, it doesn't necessarily make me nervous, but I thought it was a good exposure of their characters. Alain is maybe the least confident, or maybe even the least mature, and I think he's freaking out a bit, whereas Roland certainly isn't, and Cuthbert isn't either. And Cuthbert is either because he's got his own like metal underneath, or he's just trusting in Roland. And so those two have more maturity, so they're not necessarily freaking out. I don't remember. I thought I put it in my notes, but apparently I didn't. But what it reminds me of is, you got kids, and I know we've brought up sleepovers before, but it's like the first sleepover. It's like there's some of the kids that just, every kid's going to be nervous in that circumstance. Their first time not sleeping at home, outside of like going to grandma and grandpa's or something.
Right.
But it's like you're going to your friend's house. This is a strange house, strange
There's
parents,
not a relative there.
Yeah, this is different. And there's some kids that end up calling, and their parents have to go pick them up because they come home. There's other ones that are still scared that stay through. Like there's different kinds of kids, and I think the reason that Alain is the one this is how I viewed it, is I think the reason Alain is the one that's more vocal here is because I think he's kind of freaking out a little bit. Like he's the one that he wants the comfort of home still.
Maybe not freaking out, not the right way of putting it. Maybe he's getting a little bit anxious because we got the line already that he hates pointless work.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't mind hard work. He doesn't mind even if it's monotonous and repetitive and everything like
Yeah.
that. But it's pointless. We're not doing what we should be doing.
Yeah.
That kind of like maybe freaking out is the right way. That he's just like, oh, I want to be doing something.
Yeah, because if there was more benefit, or more like work that he saw value in, that could almost help him take his mind off of things.
Exactly.
So I think that it's just like, and I don't mean freaking out like he's completely losing his mind.
Yeah.
But I do think that he's way more nervous. Whereas like Cuthbert, whether that's his own bravery or more so like, hey, Roland's here. He's got it. He's a gunslinger now. Like, I'm okay if he's okay, or it could. I don't know about Cuthbert. It could go either way. But with
because the thing with Cuthbert that I just want to jump in real fast is like loudmouth.
Yeah,
like me. When I get quiet, people get nervous. I've had it happen. I've been sitting at home, not said a word for an hour, and my wife's like, "Are you mad?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have anything to say." And she's like, "That's so weird." And that's what I'm saying here is that we got kind of like a role reversal for the two.
You know what I picture it though with Cuthbert though is kind of like that. You've seen it in 100 movies where even if it's got the loudmouth, where they're all just kind of sitting around either a campfire or a sunset. Maybe he has a freaking little piece of grass in his mouth, and he's just kind of like, it's been a long day. He's decompressed. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's how I viewed Cuthbert more so than
the
like,
battery's drained.
Yeah, it's just like whatever. Now it's just like that empty stare into the campfire or the sunset. I guess that's how I viewed it. Not that necessarily saying that King actually gave us that. But
Right.
that's how I've always viewed it. Whereas Alain's kind of squirrely because it's like if he had a phone to call home and have mom come pick him up from the sleepover, I think he's probably the one that might pick that phone up at this point. And
just
he's
to,
14, so I'm not going to hold it against him. Like,
yeah, and also just to set up with Alain here, your next note talks about a little bit more about what also might be going on with him.
Yeah, and he hasn't picked up the code yet. So he's a little bit behind the other two as well.
Yeah, so there's just another little piece of thing there that can be causing anxiety for him. Is that, what does it say? I haven't picked it up. I still am trying, that kind of thing.
And I'm definitely not faulting him at all.
No.
Again, this is 100% normal. I was always the opposite. I was always like, my mom loves to tell the story about my first day of kindergarten where she's, like pulled up and she's like, well, you want me to walk you to the door? And I'm like, no, I've got it. And I just got out and she like said she started crying because she wanted to walk me to the door.
Yeah.
But it's like, I was always just that way. I just buffalo my way into whatever circumstance. Now, it doesn't mean I wasn't scared, but it's like, I just had that bravado.
Ted's always got the mindset, and I've seen it with him with stuff that we've done project-wise and everything. Is like, well, it's got to be done. I gotta do it.
Yeah. So
it's no good. It's no good. Crying over spilled milk. I got to clean it up.
Yeah.
That's the way Tad's mind works.
Whereas I remember having some sleepovers at my place where I had one kid that would call his parents and then left. Parents came and picked him up, and he was just it happens. Like, to
be fair, it's terrifying being alone with you. So that's probably what happened.
It's just different maturity levels, and that's how I kind of viewed all this. Is Alain's a little bit less mature, and not in like he's gonna make fart jokes, but more of just like, they're away from home probably for the first time ever. They don't have anyone around. Like, Roland's their only protection. He's a apprentice gunslinger. It's their same age. Like, there's plenty to be nervous about there. And then now that they're starting to see shit happen, I mean, like, honestly, maybe the showdown kind of spun him out a little bit. Like, that's not a situation.
I mean, you saw the nerves of steel that Alain had during that, but this is the first time we're seeing Alain afterwards, isn't it?
Yeah, and ultimately, like, a lot of times, like, your adrenaline and stuff can carry you through certain events. But then after the fact, though, is when you could actually start thinking back and going, like, I could have been killed. Like,
maybe you're right about Alain, but I just had a thought about Cuthbert because, again, me and him are pretty similar in being loudmouths and boisterous and stuff like that. Is that when you do something and you fucked up, I've done it. You've been there when I've embarrassed myself. What do? I clam up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Cuthbert's doing here. He's still putting on the performance for the townsfolk, like walking through Main Street. And that's what you're talking about is like maybe the battery's drained a little bit and he gets back and he's just like, whew. But also here, this is where he can put his boots up and be like, yeah, I almost got me and Alain killed.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. So maybe I need to tone it down a little bit.
And caught us all with our pants down because they've all been exposed now. People know that they're more than just kids.
Maybe what Roland said after the showdown of the Traveler's Rest is weighing on Cuthbert a little bit, where it's like, yeah, we've kind of shown ourselves now.
Yeah.
We're not going to get the drop on Jonas and the Coffin Hunters again. And that's on Cuthbert. Let's be honest. Cuthbert's the one that started the showdown of the Traveler's Rest. Maybe it's weighing on him a little bit.
Yeah, if they're playing poker right now, Cuthbert just wore mirror aviators.
While holding up his cards so everyone can see.
So everyone sees his hand.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So,
all right.
We're going long on this one.
Let's do it. Cuthbert says, all right, same message, and writes in code that Alain could read because it had been the same message several times since they had come to Hambury. Message received, we are fine, nothing to report at this time. So I guess that kind of goes to your point. This is just standard procedure.
Yeah.
The message was put in the capsule and tied to the pigeon. Alain went down the steps, stood beside Rusher, still waiting patiently to be unsaddled, by the way, Roland. Held the bird up to the sunset and said, Heil! And the pigeon took flight, and Roland sat watching it with a dreamy expression on his face. Alain found himself wondering if Roland had made the right decision. He had never thought that in his life, or had expected to think that. Alain says Roland's name, and Roland says, like a man half awakened from a deep sleep. Alain asks if he would like him to unsaddle Rusher. No answer for a long time, and finally Roland says, no, I'll do it in a minute or two, and he goes back to looking at the sunset. Alain climbs back up on the porch and sits in his rocker. Bert went back to his box. It sounds so wrong. Bert went back to his box, but it's what he's sitting on.
Yeah.
They were both behind Roland, and Cuthbert looked at Alain with eyebrows raised. Alain passed over what he had snatched from Roland's collar. Although it was too fine to see, Cuthbert's eyes were gunslingers, and he grabbed it easily with no fumbling. It was a long strand of golden hair. They'd only met one girl with hair that color. In Cuthbert's eyes, Alain saw dismay and laughter in equal measure. Cuthbert raised his forefinger to his temple and mind pulling the trigger. Alain nodded. Roland in front of them sat looking at the dying sunset with dreaming eyes. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you think of Alain questioning Roland here? Kind of like what we've been talking about. It's like, that's really kind of out of character for Alain, and like what we've been talking about for the last, about 10 minutes is that this is really kind of out of character for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess this is, I guess I did put it down as a note, but it was right here, because my answer to that ultimately is I think this is the maturity thing.
This is the whole sleepover analogy that you already said. Okay.
And this is kind of where it's like, he's not questioning Roland, and he's doing it kind of in his mind. He did a little bit verbally, but most of it's in his mind where it's like, is he making the right choice right now? And I think that's kind of the thing where, when he's kind of, you're freaking out a little bit, you may start questioning things that really shouldn't be questioned, right?
Right.
There's just like, it's like the person that starts to get nervous about shit. It's like, well, this bridge I've driven on 1,000,000 times, is it going to collapse on me this time? Like,
is it going to be safe, but just because it's raining?
Yeah, there's just, it's that's the vibe I'm getting. So I don't
Alain may honestly be suffering a little bit of here after the Traveler's Rest, where for a few weeks now, things have gone just kind of mundane.
Yeah.
And he had so much adrenaline, shot up there.
Yeah.
That no action was taken.
Yeah.
No one was hurt. No one was killed. But now there's this thought.
There's also a tension.
Yeah, that's the better way of putting it. There's this tension of something's going to happen. And Alain may not be able to handle that as well as Roland and Cuthbert.
Yeah. And with Cuthbert, I still want to hold it out there that there's a good chance that maybe he doesn't even have that same gravitas himself yet, but that he's trusting Roland. Because I feel like I think those two are way closer.
Yeah.
And so it could very well be that he's just leaning on kind of the older brother, even though they're
Yeah.
about the same age, right? But it's like he's leaning on Roland, and it's like, so long as Roland's
He's
okay,
still going to
I'm
be seen
okay.
as an older brother. I mean, we've all had this. Even kids
Yeah.
that were younger than us that did something that elevated their age. You know?
Oh yeah.
I remember in junior high in 9th grade, there was this one friend of mine who came to school one day with a pierced ear. Dude, youngest kid in the class, like had a birthday in like June, where the rest of us were from August through May. We're older than him, but since he had a pierced ear, it elevated him. That's kind of like the thing here with Roland, is that he's done his test. He bested court.
Yeah.
He got his guns.
Yeah.
He's an apprentice. There's that elevation there for him that you're talking about that Cuthbert may just, we got to trust Roland.
As long as I don't see nervousness from him, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of my view. And it also that makes me laugh because I think I got my ears pierced in like 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Oh, my parents are rapscallions.
Oh, they were. Well, are.
So to my last point, Alain offers to turn Rusher down. Again, it feels like something a kid might offer to do for a parent. I think King is doing a good job to show that Alain is the most uncomfortable, and I think that even if this was the quiet corner their fathers suspected this was, he'd probably be having some nerves.
Just being away from home for the first time.
It's just, exactly. He's a little bit less ready for it. That's my view of it. King is leaving a lot to our interpretations, but it certainly feels like he's kind of, I don't know, like a spring.
He's on edge.
Yeah, exactly.
He's very much on edge right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you look at it from the perspective of this is a 14-year-old kid, he's never been away from home before. He just had a near-death experience with 3 very bad men.
Yeah.
Had a gun to his back or a knife? I can't remember which one he had. He has the knife to Roy's or one of theirs.
I think he has a gun to his back.
And then Jonas puts his gun to his, So having that, to the back of the head.
Yeah.
Because then he refuses and Jonas was all flabbergasted.
Yeah.
So even though he showed the steel and everything like that, still.
Yeah.
He might be a little on edge.
Yes.
And then my last note here, this is not called out by King in any way, but I just want to point out, so one of the last things that Susan says is to keep it a secret that they made out, and Alain and Cuthbert already know.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
They already know. So it's just like instantly, boom, we already know that the two with Roland know.
Luckily, I think that of anyone to find out, these are probably the best ones to find out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be on his side.
No. It's not necessarily like a bad thing. It's just that Susan said, keep it a secret, keep it safe. And then the first thing Frodo does is tell someone, or accidentally show, Frodo goes out to buy bread and drops the ring in the market kind of thing,
Yeah.
The only person who saw it was Sam, but still.
Hey, let's give Roland credit, because how many 14-year-old boys would be going to tell their friends immediately after kissing?
Don't kiss and tell.
Come on.
I know.
All right, so that brings us to Chapter 8 now. We're jumping on over to Chapter 8, and this one is titled Beneath the Peddler's Moon. And we got Subchapter 1, and that's all we're going to get through today. It is a longer subchapter.
Let's go.
So starting off here, it says the town of Ritzy was near 400 miles west of Magus, and it was anything but. Roy Depape reached it 3 nights before the Peddler's Moon, called the late summer moon by some, before it came full. Ritzy was a miserable little mining town on the eastern slopes of Vicastus Mountains. The town had one street that was engraved with wheel ruts right now, but it would be mud once the autumn storms came. Which, isn't that just like the quintessential like Old West town, like the one street town, right?
Yep.
Like,
especially the wheel ruts too.
Yeah, this just feels like, I mean, you can't even like say it's Tombstone. That was a bigger town than this. But we've all seen 100 westerns that have that one strip of 3 or 4 buildings, and that's the town, right?
Yep. And then everyone else lives
out beyond. So there was a bear and turtle mercantile where the miners were forbidden from shopping. There was a combined jail and town gathering hall, which that's an interesting thing to combine. The town gathering hall and the jail, and there were 6 roaring bar rooms, each more sordid, desperate, and dangerous than the last.
That sounds about right with miners.
Yeah. Once there had been a freehold mine, but they were all there had been freehold mines, but now they were all gone, regulated out by Vicastus Company. Depape knew about this because the coffin hunters had been part of it just after he had hooked up with Jonas and Reynolds. So that there's some fun little intrigue and backstory. In fact, they had gotten their coffin tattoos not 50 miles from here in a town less ritzy than Ritzy. How long ago he couldn't say, but he felt like he should be able to. He found it hard to even remember how old he was a lot of the time. The world had moved on, and time was different, softer.
Same. We have a hard time remembering how old we are. Last week was proof of that when you blew my mind.
Yes, indeed.
Jerk.
So I will point out my first note here, Miles, not Wheels. That's interesting. Wheels has generally been but we know Blaine asked at one point, so I do think Miles exists in this world.
Roland's brought up Miles before, too.
Yeah, but it's mostly been Wheels, so it's just interesting because it's like, and this could just be King kind of forgetting and just saying Miles, but of course we're nerds, so we're gonna look at it and say, well, they both exist in this world. It's interesting they're using that one here.
My note here: bear and turtle, mercantile and sundry items. Nice callback to the Wastelands. We got Shardik and the turtle called out.
Yeah, and that's an interesting that would be kind of the name for it, Baron Turtle Mercantile, because we have seen in Magus that the Mercantile place had like the
12 Guardians,
the Guardians on a bunch of stuff. So that's kind of interesting.
Kind of seems like a theme for mercantile stores.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Also, King craftily syncing us up with what we've already seen. The very beginning of Chapter 7, where it said that 3 weeks had passed since the welcome dinner, mentions that the kissing moon had waned and the peddler's moon had made its first appearance. So Roy has been on the road for 3 weeks. So
it's another 3 weeks, so that's 6 weeks now past the welcome dinner?
Yes, I think so. Because ultimately, it was the Susan thing right before she went out riding. You covered it,
right?
And it mentioned that the moon's shifting. So it's just kind of cool for King because we've seen that where the timelines.
Yes,
we saw that a lot in the Wastelands where like one subchapter would be one character, one would be the other, and there was like some explosion or something that helped like sync the two timelines up. Here is what we just got that because the moon is a perfect time indicator, so it just puts us in line with what because he was sent the night of the dinner, right? Because the Traveler's Rest happened, he gets punched, and he's like, "You're saddling up right now and going." So the 3 weeks that happened between the opening thing and like Susan there, in the same time he's been traveling, and here he finds himself 3 weeks later.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Is how long does it take the boys to travel to Magus?
Yeah.
Is that if it's 3 weeks from Ritzy to here? We find out later that Ritzy is not exactly close to Gilead.
Yeah.
So there may actually be some travel time to get to Magus.
Yeah, indeed. So he's been on the road for 3 weeks. Also telling us some call it late summer moon, gives us some bearings for the year because we assume that Reap is in the fall, kind of Halloween, Thanksgiving-ish, right in that area somewhere is kind of like, that's like harvest, right? So it's like that's kind of what they've got is harvest and reap is. So you're talking.
Yeah, we got the sense that reap is the fall because of Rhea telling Susan that he can't have her.
Yes,
and then that's 3 months from now, and it's the start of summer when that happens.
Yes. So and we'll ultimately know because of Rhea's decree as well as the coffin hunters talking that a lot of things are going to be coming to head around
reap
because that's when they were talking about the oil tankers. So this is a very cool way for King to kind of.
Remind you about the clock.
Sneakily remind us because we do have a ticking clock for this story. And he's now not only aligned us with where we line up with the rest of the story, but he's also showing us where we're at, late summer. So we still got some time for the story, but that clock is ticking. So, which I love because whenever you have a ticking clock, the story is way more, has more spice to it. A lot of world building here. We get some backstory to the coffin hunters, but also he is following the boys' back trail. So they went through these rough areas as well. I mean, these aren't just normal kids, but damn, this is rough areas. Also, how long was the journey? 3 weeks. I will say, it's not a spoiler because I'm covering it in this section, but later on it does say that Roy does take longer because he's stopping and questioning people at every stop.
Right.
So it may not have taken the boys 3 weeks.
That's true.
So
let's say if they're traveling through this and it takes Roy 3 weeks with him stopping at every town, asking
people,
questions, staying a night every time, or at least a few hours. Let's say it takes the boys half the time, so a week and a half from Ritzy to Magus. That's not nearly as bad as what I was thinking.
That would be fair, yeah. So, but still, though, that's a long journey for a bunch of 14-year-old boys.
Yeah. There's one part of here that wasn't in your section, but I had to call it out. Depape says that the boys stand out like sore thumbs because of how well they're dressed and everything like that. But there's one specific line where it says that they don't have any regulator tattoos on their hands. Never caught that before. what? So the coffin tattoos makes them regulators. What is a regulator in this world? Do you think a bounty hunter, mercenaries, kind of thing? Like
Could be.
It's never really like explained beyond this, and it's just such a throwaway line that it's like, oh yeah, the boys stood out. They had good stock horses. They had nice clothes. They had fair skin, no blemishes, and they didn't have regulator tattoos on their hands. It's like, well, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What's a regulator tattoo?
Yeah.
What is a regulator?
Yeah, what
and
does
so
that mean?
kind of thing. I just had to call that out because I've never caught that before in all my read-throughs. Does that mean the Jonas and the Big Coffin Hunters are legal? Because we kind of have like the suspicion, like Jonas was a former gunslinger, right? Like a filled one. Like we have these hints at what is his past, and we know Depape and Reynolds are just degens.
Yeah.
They're just bad guys.
Yeah.
But what does the tattoo make? That regulators? That's kind of interesting. Like, what is that then?
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know.
It's such a throwaway line too.
Also, there's a lot of lawlessness in this world, so I don't know that they need legitimacy, but it does potentially put them in a class of some kind.
I wonder if this puts them in a you got the range of like law enforcement, right? Like you got the local law, like Sheriff Avery is kind of the local law, and then maybe you have kind of like a regional. Almost like a marshal you see in a lot of old westerns, and then if something big happens, which we've seen in another story with the Dark Tower, The Wind Through the Keyhole, is you have the gunslingers. They get sent on almost like special agents, like federal agents kind of things.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the proper stories we've covered already. So.
Oh yeah, we have. We're talking about missions and stuff like that being sent out and stuff like that. But it's just interesting. What is a regulator here? What are the Big Coffin Hunters?
Yeah, it's a good question.
They seem kind of like they're guns for hire.
Yeah.
Which we've seen in westerns. It's like, oh, we got a gang riding in on us? Well, let's hire some guns to help us.
A posse?
Let's raise ourselves a posse.
Yes, indeed. I'm reading a thing on westerns right now, so I'm very familiar right now with posses and Wells Fargo armed people for Wells Fargo wagons that are traveling with money and
the
stuff.
Stagecoaches.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of that's fresh in my mind right now.
There you go.
One thing he had no trouble remembering, going back to the text here, was the boys and his humiliation, and he was reminded every time he bumped his wounded finger, which is a good reminder that he lost a fingernail and got some fun wounds on his hand there. That would hurt and how often do you bump finger wounds too? Happens all the fucking time.
It's like whenever you cut your fingernail too close.
Yeah,
you're sitting there playing with it. I bet you a couple
or bump
of times.
it on a counter or something. Every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's one of those things you hit your hand more often than you realize, but you just don't notice it because it's minor. But when you've got a cut or some kind of
sore or something,
a bruise even, it's like now suddenly every time your hand gets touched, like you realize it. So I feel you there, Roy. He promised himself that he would see Dearborn, Stockworth, and Heath laid out dead in a row, and he intended to piss on their dead faces with most of his piss saved for Arthur Heath of Gilead, that laughing chatterbox motherfucker.
See, that's the way of describing Cuthbert, and that's why I'm saying he's not acting like.
Yeah. So not only does he want to kill them, but desecrate their bodies in probably one of the more demeaning ways that one might think of. So
it just really makes me think of like old Western movies. Like the bad guys, like you see them do shit like this, like in Tombstone, they drag that one that betrayed them behind their horses. That's along this lines.
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
Yeah, indeed. So Depape rode out to the sunrise end of Ritzy's only street and recalled the night before at Hadigan's. The town had been roaring, whereas now the morning it looked like a ghost, as ghostly as the peddler's moon. He could hear the mines tink-tonking away. They did not, or they did that 7 days a week, no rest for the wicked. He thought of the old bastard as he went. He had treated the old bastard fair, he reckoned, and the reward had been promised for information, and it had been paid. He had no trouble following the boys' back trail. It seemed that they had come east on the Great Road the whole way from New Canaan,
Connecticut.
and they believe they had been marked at every town they had stopped at. Hell, they were even marked in towns that they didn't stop. They were young men on good horses, good clothes, and expensive hats.
Oh, this is where they talk about that. Sorry.
They remembered especially well. They were remembered especially well at inns and saloons because they ate, but they drank no alcohol. Depape relished the thought of pissing on their dead faces, especially Arthur Heath. So going back to that, and he could not return to Hanbury with just that. With just that fact, because they were marked. Because if he did, Jonas would rightly shoot his nose off his face.
I like that he says rightly.
Yeah. And
Justified.
Yeah, justified. They may be rich boys, but that is not all they were, and that is what he needed to answer. He finally found the answer in Ritzy. Not everything, perhaps, but enough for him to go back. Before he ended ended up all the way back in New Canaan.
Yeah.
So, so I would say that makes me wonder if that he's closer to like if you looked at it on a scale, and Magus is one area, New Canaan's the other. I wonder if he's probably well beyond the halfway mark.
Yeah.
Getting here from Ritzy.
Feels
right?
that way.
Like where it's like, oh God, I'm almost all the way to fucking. I'm gonna get to New Canaan if I don't stop here pretty soon. So not feeling like this old man was actually treated fairly, like he says.
Roy here may have a different scale of what's fair.
What's fair, yeah.
Not.
I just remember reading that the first time. I'm like, if we don't hear this story, I'm going to assume this probably didn't go well.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiler alert, we do hear the story, but
Yes.
I remember reading the first time and going, just the way he's like saying it, even in his mind there, it's like it feels like mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
So I treated him fair, and it's like,
Yeah.
Usually you don't have to say that if you truly treated someone fair. You know?
Yeah, I think it's also not even that he's like, I treated him fair. He's like, I'm pretty sure I did. It's like, yeah. Like, almost like, who are you trying to convince, man?
Yeah.
Me or you?
Yeah, exactly. It makes total sense what he is finding. They are like shiny pennies in the midst of a worn out and broken world, and they are going to stick out like sore thumbs. Like there's and it kind of makes me wonder, like, what's the strategy there? Like, could they not find them some worn out, dingy ass clothing, get them some lower end horses? Like, just you could
maybe you don't want that because you want the level of protection that comes with
But wouldn't that make them
don't mess with them? They might be affiliated to the
maybe, but
that there's that level of protection where it's like, you're with that group? Yeah. That's an Italian group? Yeah, don't fuck with them. They're with the mob, kind of thing.
Wouldn't you want to rob richer kids, though?
No. They're not rich kids. They're connected kids. There's a difference between the two, right? Like, if you see a Russian wearing a tracksuit, you don't fuck with him. You see an Italian wearing a white shirt and a sports coat with no tie in New York, you don't fuck with him. That's what I'm saying, is that they look connected by their appearance. They don't just look rich. They look connected.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between looking rich and looking connected. But if you find them some rundown clothes, you find them some less than looking horses, all of a sudden it's, well, fuck, I can take them. Yeah. And they look like normal boys, and you go beat the shit out of them and take their stuff.
Well, that wouldn't work out well.
That's what the mind of the thieves would be. That's what I mean.
That probably wouldn't work out well for them.
Right. And then just to your note about sticking out like a sore thumb, it just reminds me of the line from Monty Python. How did you know I was royalty? You're the only one not covered in shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Let's see. And then my last note. He found something. We knew that the showdown was bad enough, but what the fuck did he find out?
Yeah, and
it's going to get worse.
Also, just compiling onto your point, this is still pretty early in the story. Like, oh, fuck, they're already onto them?
Yeah.
Usually, you want undercover cops to stay undercover a little bit longer.
At least until the third act, yeah.
You don't want to expose the guy that's secretly got into Michael Corleone's family until the third act, because if he's found out early, he'll be sleeping with the fishes.
Yes, indeed. So then going on here, he had hit 2 other saloons, sipping watered-down beer in each before rolling into Hattigan's. He ordered another watered-down beer and prepared to engage the bartender in conversation. But before he began to shake the tree, the apple he wanted fell from the tree and into his hand. It was an old man's voice, shrill with a head-hurting intensity. He was talking about the old days, as old bastards always did, and about how the world had moved on and how it had been so much better when he was a boy. Then he said something that caught Depape's attention. He said that maybe the old days might be coming again, for hadn't he seen 3 young lords not 2 months agone? And he had even bought 1 drink, even if it was sarsaparilla. Which gross. That's like root beer.
Tad hates root beer.
Someone told him he wouldn't know a young lord from a young turd, and there was a general laughter from the room. The old man said he knew all right, and he had forgotten more than any of them would ever learn. And he said that one of them came from the line of Eld, and said he had seen his father in his face. And then he poured his beer down the front of the lady who said that he didn't know anything. She hit him, and he only laughed until she grabbed his beer stein and shattered it over his head, and he began to scream in pain with beer and blood running down his face. She told him to get out, and and she could smell the weed on his breath. Everyone kicked him as he moved towards the exit. Depape followed and helped him up and smelled the stench of the weed. The man had probably just started it on it, and for the usual reasons, because devil grass was free, unlike the beer and the whiskey. But once one started, the finish came quick. As a lifelong Utah resident, I can relate to watered down beer. So yes, I feel you, Roy. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs for sure.
This section here just reminded me of what we were talking about a second ago. Not only is he having to stop, but if he's stopping in a town that has 4 bars, he's got to go to each bar, ask questions.
Yeah,
and we see that he's not just going in, "Hey, have you seen these boys?" No, okay.
Have you seen this boy?
Have you seen this man? He's going in, he's having a drink, maybe getting a bite to eat.
Yeah.
Gossiping a little bit, talking a little bit.
It's going to take some time.
Yeah, exactly. And then my note here, a beer stein to the side of the head. Ouch. Those things are not light.
No, they are not. I love that even in this world, old men talk the exact same way they do here, and it doesn't feel wrong either. I would imagine the old speak just this way in any reality on any planet or from any culture. It's
back in my day.
Yeah, it's just a true thing. It's funny because I remember there was something I saw probably closer when I was in high school, but they had found something from the Roman era, so like 1st century or even BC potentially, where it was a Roman thing, and literally it was a writing where someone was bitching about how the youth was just like, they didn't work anymore. They were worse. Like just, it was the same bitches that we hear now. And it was like crazy to think like, oh, look, 2000 something years ago, they were saying the same thing about kids.
Yeah.
And then my next note, whoa, he says he can see the line of Eldon Roland's face. That's a bit wild.
Yeah, and we all know, because he just says he saw the line of Eldon, one of their faces.
Yeah.
We know who he's talking about.
We know it's Roland.
We know who he's talking about.
Yeah. The way this guy is beat to hell by the lady and most patrons makes me think he's never tried that move of pouring beer over her or anyone else before. Seems like that's probably a new one in his strategies.
Well, especially if he's like a new weed eater, smoker. I don't know what exactly. It never really like gets specific.
That's true. It doesn't call him eater, but yeah.
But weed, you know, like a devil grass user. This may just be like a turning point for him where, yeah, he's had enough.
Yeah. And then that's my next note. Man, we have not talked about weed eaters since Nort, have we? I guess there was one point that it came up in books 2 or 3 because Roland warned Eddie and or Susanna about Devil's Grass.
That.
Yeah, no matter what you burn, you can't burn that.
Yeah.
But it has been a minute, though, since we talked about this. I mean,
yeah.
Nort, for sure. That was way more in-depth with, like, the addiction and what it does to people. We saw
it causes death, too.
Yes. And
it's not one of those drugs that you just get addicted to and you
live on.
You live on, but eventually waste away and run out of money, and that's what kills you, is that. No, this is a drug that kills you.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a minute since we talked about it, so it's kind of a cool little throwback.
Yeah, and I put my note just tandem with that, definitely getting some Nort vibes from this old-timer here.
Yes, indeed. So the old man said they had no respect nor understanding, and Depape agreed because again he helped him up here as they're moving out of the bar. The man asked Depape if he had the price of a drink and to remember the face of his fathers and to help out an old soul. Depape said that he is not one for charity, but he could earn it, and told him to follow him to his office and led the old man to an alley between Hattigan's and the business next door. The old man cackled at the idea of his office, and Depape led him to the end of the alley where there was heaps of garbage. And refuse. The old man asked if Depape was from Magus or Tefachi, because it said a bit ago that Depape could not shake the Magus for accent from his voice, so he's hearing his accent there. Yeah. That's interesting. Depape said maybe one or the other, or maybe neither. The old man seemed to recognize him, and that made sense as they had been here before, and that encouraged Depape because if this old coot could remember him from that far back, maybe he was not bullshitting about the 3 young lords that would have been here much more recently. He told the man to tell him about the 3 young lords. The man asked if there might be a meal in it for him, and Depape agreed, and they dickered about the type of metal and that he'd be paid in. Depape finally threatened to break his arm, and he finally agreed to talk.
Yeah, by bending his arm up behind him. Like, not just I'll break your fucking arm. No, like, grabs him, turns him around. And
yeah, yes. That hurts, by the way.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
If you ever had the back of your hand touch the back of your head, I can tell you that hurts.
Yeah, when you can scratch the back of your head from that angle.
Yeah, not fun.
No.
Funny, all Depape does to help him, and he's trying to shake him down for the price of a drink.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's giving him, like, some compassion. He helps him up. but he still tries to shake him down. Like,
It's a classic thing, though. Information's worth something.
yeah. And then leading him down an alley, that does not sound good.
My note here, no witnesses in alleys.
Yeah, that's just not a good place to
Come down this alley. I must speak to you. Yeah, nothing good ever happens when
be.
someone
Yeah,
says
it's like,
that.
we're just talking information. Why not just do it here on the open street?
Yeah,
That's-
where there's witnesses.
Yeah, exactly. What was the one comedian that's like, back in the day when your dad, like, you want to go out to the car and talk about this when you were misbehaving? in a
No, I
restaurant?
want where there's witnesses.
Yeah, it's like, no, I don't want to go out to the car. There's no witnesses out there.
Yeah.
So the man remembered Depape. As Depape figured, he probably does have a good memory. This is not good for us.
Yeah. This just goes back to what I was saying. Like, we're just barely into the story and shit.
Yeah. I love that once he finds that he knows something Depape wants to know, he's asking for a meal as well. And as they dicker until Depape threatens to break his arm, I guess he remembers his face, but not that he is dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, seems like he remembers some things about this guy, but not enough
Not
to
the
like,
important
yeah,
things.
don't fuck around with him. So it's then going on.
I wonder if he saw the little coffin, and if he saw the little coffin, maybe that would trigger a warning bell.
Yeah. He said that there were 3 and they were fine-born lads. Depape asked if they were lords or lads, and he said, and the old man said maybe both. One for sure was a lord, and he had seen his father, and his father bore guns. And not the poor ones like Depape carried, and he begged his pardon, saying that, that's all that there is in the world, but, like the ones that his dad had or not.
Yeah.
They were big and whatever. It says the boy's dad had ones that were big, the big ones with the sandalwood grips. Depape looked at the man with excitement and reluctant awe as well. He remembered that Jonas had said that they had acted like gunslingers, and Reynolds had said they were too young, and Jonas had said not too young to be apprentices. Now it seems Jonas was right. He confirmed sandalwood grips with the old man, and the old man agreed. Depape says he meant. Depape said that he meant one of the boys' fathers carried the big irons. The old man agreed and said, yes, the gunslinger, and one of the last lords. Their line was passing now, but the old man says his dad knew the gunslinger well, and the gunslinger's name was Stephen Deshane of Gilead.
Shit.
Yeah, not good. Stephen, son of Henry. Depape asked about the one he saw not long ago, and the man said it was his son, Henry the Tall's grandson. So now we got a nickname for Roland's granddad as well. He said that the other ones looked well born and might be from the line of lords as well, but the one came from the line of Arthur Eld by one line or another. Depape realized he didn't know which one of the 3 the man had been talking about. He asked if any of them had guns, and the old man said not where anyone could see them, but probably in their bedrolls. Well, I guess that wasn't a unique hiding spot, because
Nope.
old man just
There's not exactly a ton of hiding spots on a horse.
No, that's true, but
what are you going to do, have the horse swallow it?
swallow it.
Rusher, eat this. I'll need it in an emergency.
Yeah. He asked what the name of the son of Stephen gave. The man tried to remember and said Deerfield, Deerstein, and he said he couldn't quite remember. Depape said that's fine. He had earned his medal, and the old man asked if it was silver or gold, and Depape said it was lead and shot him twice in the chest, doing him a favor, really.
It's metal.
So it is metal,
Yep.
and it is probably true. It's probably actually a mercy.
Yeah.
With the weed element. So sandalwood grips.
Oh, yeah.
And then Depape recalling the gunslingers. Depape recalling the gunslinger conversation, realizing that Jonas was right. This is really not good. That showdown, while entertaining, is proving to be disastrous for our boys. The old guy's dad knew Roland's dad. That follows. We are 3 weeks. We are 3 weeks towards Gilead, and we've heard that Magus has not seen a gunslinger in their area for a few generations. And here we're talking about an older guy's dad knowing Stephen, which is kind of, what kind of luck is that, though?
Oh, it's terrible.
Because it's like, yeah, Magus is further out, so maybe you see less gunslingers there, but you are 3 weeks further in, so maybe these guys see gunslingers more often. But god damn it, what are the goddamn odds, man?
Yeah. On my note here is this just struck me as odd that they're this close to Gilead, that Stephen is known by some, at least by this old man. But the coffin hunters have been all over these parts. I would think gunslingers would put down this lot if they cross them. Why are they sticking so close to Gilead? But that goes back to my question about regulators. Maybe they are allowed here if they're just not doing too much bad.
Yeah, but it's also been a while, because he's saying he remembers his dad knew this guy, and this guy is an old man. So his dad knew Steven. So it's like
when he was a boy is when he saw him.
Yeah, so ultimately Steven may not have been here for a good while.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that it's kind of like the Jedi, where it's like the Jedi are out doing their thing, but then at a certain point, as their numbers draw down, things get more bogged down. There's planets that see them less and less.
Yeah, when's the last time Tatooine saw a Jedi?
Yeah, and I think that's the same thing here with gunslingers. Is like, yes, 100 years ago, you probably saw a lot more gunslingers in these outer reaches areas, whereas now, like, they've been dwindled their numbers as well as they're busy. So, going on here, my next note, and he doesn't remember the name, but remembers it had deer in it. So yeah, Roy knows now that it's Will Dearborn. So he has the connection. Well, now our boys have almost no advantages, and they're in some serious danger.
Yep.
And then my last note before we move on here. Yeah, like I said, being led into an alley by someone like Roy is not a good for one's health. Though if he is a newly minted weed eater, maybe it actually was a mercy kill.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Save you the suffering of what Nort went through.
Yeah, exactly. So going on the tail end of the section here, now Roy rode back towards Magus. It would be much faster trip since he didn't have to stop at every dipshit little town to question people.
Like we were talking about.
Yeah, indeed. He heard the flutter of wings above his head, a pigeon, and he figured it was not a wild pigeon. It was likely an escaped pet, but it was not the kind of pet for this part of the world, and he figured roasted pigeon would be a good treat, and as he stopped for the night. He drew his gun, and he shot after the bird. It was not a great shot to take, but sometimes you get lucky, but he was not lucky today. It dipped a little and straightened out and disappeared into the direction that Depape was going. He thought Jonas would be pleased with what he had found. He got his horse going and headed back towards Magus, where the boys that had embarrassed him were waiting to be dealt with. They might be lords or sons of gunslingers, but in these latter days, even such as those could die. And as the dead old bastard would have pointed out, the world has moved on.
Yeah.
So the message Roland got in the last chapter almost intercepted here.
Yeah.
And again, by pure accident. Kind of one of those things where it's like, what are the fucking chances that old man, one, spoke up, two, his dad was familiar with Stephen Deshane, which is Roland's fucking dad. Like, there's all these like coincidences.
And he bought them a drink. He bought one of the three a drink.
Yeah. And I'm guessing it's Roland, probably, right?
Yeah.
Because he recognized it, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just feels like there's all these things. At least here, we got at least one break where the bird didn't get taken down. Because, not that he could have decoded the message, but it would have stopped the message from
it
getting
wouldn't
to
have
them.
got to them.
Yeah.
But honestly, at the same time, look at it from the other way. Maybe it's a good thing that he didn't hit it for them. Because if he hits that and the affiliation's like, uh-oh, we haven't heard back from them.
Yeah.
Send help.
That's true. That is true.
Maybe that's a good thing for him that he didn't hit it.
Yeah.
I just put this would be a very cinematic scene here. Him getting up on his horse, starting to ride out of town, remembering, have it be a flashback, but then also taking a shot at the bird, and then he misses and the bird flies, and you just see the bird kind of flying for a bit, and then it comes down and lands on Roland's shoulder. Swap the scenes.
You could, yeah. Although I do like the backwards element of it.
You always like that with Stephen King. Stephen King does it so much.
It's a fun thing for sure. Then my last note. Then Roy's thought reminds us that this is not the days of old. Gunslingers or children gunslingers can be killed.
Yeah.
So that's an uncomfortable thought to end our section for today. So I do have a spoiler discussion to have. So let's go ahead and
hit the button. Hit the button.
Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead.
All right, let me get on over here. There we go. Now we are in the spoiler section. So if you've not finished the 7 Primer books, the Dark Tower series, mostly this book, this spoiler section is just for this book.
Yeah.
You may want to cry off and come back to it after you finish this book. But let's go ahead and dive in. Spoiler ahead. So we saw Alain questioning Roland and Cuthbert not giving a peep, but at the end of that subchapter, the reveal of the hair, and notice from here on out, Cuthbert is the one that's more vocally critical of Roland and his decision-making. So up to and including punching him. So I've never pieced this together until now. But yeah, the largest driver of his dissent is not Roland's strategy, but his jealousy of Susan, or what Susan represents.
Or it is jealousy of Susan, absolutely, but I also think part of it is Cuthbert's one of Cuthbert's points is, are you thinking with your head or your head?
Yeah.
Like which head are you thinking with here kind of thing.
But he also talks about being jealous when the blow up happens. Of not even jealous of he is jealous of Susan a tiny bit, but he's also jealous of the fact that Roland's the first to like cross that barrier as well. Like there's kind of that thing where you're mad when your friend gets his driver's license first, and like there's just those certain things where it's like, God damn it, can I just be first on
Once.
one thing.
Once.
And so like that's why I
Yeah.
said well, that's I guess what I meant with like and what she represents, because it's like it isn't just that like he.
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't be infatuated with her? I mean, you know, she's obviously
Beautiful.
beautiful. They've all met her and they all kind of had a reaction. I mean, of course, his was more comical.
Yes.
Cuthbert's, you know, falling down and stuff or whatever. But it's just like, to me, it was an interesting thing I've never pieced together before. But it's like, you know, I think it was partially your note talking about how it's weird that it's Alain. But then when you actually when reading through and then get to the hair thing, I'm like, wait a minute, is that the thing that really shifts Cuthbert to now being a little
the
bit
hair?
more? Is the jealousy element,
Yeah.
because it says they both know who it belongs to.
Oh, instantly. There's only one girl who. That's what it says. There's only one girl in the whole of mages that has that color of hair.
Yeah, so that's just interesting. We'll have to clock that the rest of the way through here.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, is now where we're going to start. And yes, you are right. There is also legitimate concerns that Cuthbert is raising, but when he does give his full admission and they have their big blow up, he's like, you know, yes, I do think you're making potentially decisions for the wrong reasons, but also a lot of this is jealousy. I am jealous of you. Like, why is it always you?
Very smart of Cuthbert and very mature of him to recognize that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he still has to ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I cheer Cuthbert punching Roland, because
Yeah.
Roland is legitimately making the wrong choices.
Yes.
So
And he starts making the right choices after that.
yes. So it'll be interesting to see, like, now do we start to see Cuthbert being more like questioning of Roland? Because up to this point, really, when you think about it, we haven't really seen that much yet.
Yeah.
But now with the Susan thing, I wonder if that's really the thing that's gonna change their dynamic. I've never noticed that before, because this has always just been kind of I don't know. That's why I love doing these book clubs, man, because it brings up these questions and things that, you know, when you're just breezing
Yeah,
through reading or listening,
Exactly.
you're not having these same granular thoughts. So.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that line that I brought up. That's my example from this book. This book club is that. What the fuck is a regulator?
Yeah.
What's a regulator in this world? You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, never caught that before. I love it. I love doing book clubs when we catch stuff like
I
this.
wondered if I guess I don't have as much time, but I wonder if the like one of the companion things has something on regulators.
Oh.
That's I should have thought of that earlier, but let's see. Let me pull up Bev Vincent's
Oh, Dark Tower Wiki has an entry on regulators.
Regulators.
Oh, it's a phrase for servants of the Crimson King is what this says.
Yeah, so talking about the regulators book, 3 mercenary quote regulators called the Big Coffin Hunters. The regulators, though the regulators is not set in Desperation, Nevada. So this is talking about the actual book.
Yeah.
Let's see if we got Big Coffin Hunters, trio of regulators. Not a lot that's defining it, though.
No.
Vicastus, regulators, the Coffin Hunters. Roland comports himself well against Farson's regulators. Yeah, I don't know. It's
I think, honestly,
a group of mercenary regulators.
that's what I take as mercenaries. They're mercs.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. But it's pretty much all of it. Well, the only, as I'll say, every note in here is regarding to the Big Coffin Hunters, but I just found the one that isn't. Lowmen.
Oh.
It says soldiers of the Crimson King, also known as Cantoi and the Fan Foken. Sometimes they call themselves regulators, and many have the same hand tattoos as the Big Coffin Hunters.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's a good catch. I don't think I've ever even noticed that in there before. So yeah, I do love these book clubs, man. They're great.
So awesome.
Also, I wanted to throw it out there as well. I should have mentioned this at the top. We mentioned on the last episode we have an extra episode this month.
Yep.
We are going to make that a book club.
Yes.
So when we come back in 2 weeks from now, it won't be a round table, but it will be a book club.
Yep.
Last year, when we first transitioned into the every other episode thing, because we used to do 2 to 1, when we transitioned to that, the only thing that was annoying is it moved it to where round tables were no longer the first episode, because that third episode in a month basically reversed it. So it started going book club, round table, book club, round table. I don't like that. I like roundtables being first for some reason. It's just a comfort thing.
That's all right.
So, yeah, we decided, and in the future, we may not always do book clubs. If there is justification for a roundtable, we certainly can do that for a third one. Or if there's ever any kind of weird special episode we want to do, that'd be a good one to do as a third episode. But yes, 2 weeks from now, unless something crazy happens.
It's less than 2 weeks from now. I mentioned this last time. I should have mentioned at the start of the show. We're recording on the 28th, which is Friday, not the 29th. Family reunion that day for us, for me and my family.
Okay. So yeah, we will be doing the next part 15
on the 20th. Yeah.
So yeah, that is what is upcoming, unless of course some kind of big news happens in the intervening couple weeks.
Flanagan
there.
news.
I mean, that would be the dream, right?
We can. I'm not knocking on wood. I want it to happen.
We're well. I guess there could be bad news too, but let's
don't say that. Now you knock on wood. You do it. Thank you.
Oh, all right. So yeah, let's go ahead and hit the outro stuff. We did forget that last episode. But first of all,
did we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, subscribe to us on your podcasting delivery service of choice, or stream us on Spotify or Amazon Music or Audible, any of those fun places. Join us live for the live streams here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver, as a number of people have today. Find the show notes or all things Dark Tower Palaver over at darktowerpalaver.com. No show notes for this episode. If you want to support the show, you could become a patron over patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. You could join us on our Discord server and chat with us anytime, 24/7. You know, whatever. We have that server, as well as we are now back on board of doing the monthly hangouts. We have our You Like It Darker that we just did yesterday. That is in the feed now. So if you want to support the show, you can do that over there. Then if you want to contact the show, Peter can let you know the ways to do that.
Best way to reach us is email. It's show@darktowerpalaver.com. And then our Twitter is at darktowerpod. Our Blue Sky is at darktowerpalaver.bsky.social. And then our Facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And Instagram is darktowerpalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then our merchandise, tpublic.com/user/darktowerpalaver. #Tad is terrible.
That is a lie, sir. But we'll sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
Oi.
All right, everyone in the chat, thank y'all for joining us. It was a fun episode.
Yeah.
A lot of fun stuff to cover.
I was worried there for a second that I was doing too many tangents.
Tangents are what this show is definitly built on.
Absolutely.
But yes, no, it worked out well. So thank y'all for joining us, and we will see you guys. If you're listening to Geeky Goodbyes, we'll be back in a few minutes. Otherwise, though, we'll be seeing you in a fortnight minus a day.
Minus one.
That's not an easy thing to say. So, and then Alan also says never too many tangents.
That's right.
That's true. Dark Tangents Palaver. That's the nickname for the show. I think we've even mentioned that before. So
yes.
Definitely happens a lot. But yeah, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks, and we'll be doing again part 15 of Wizard and Glass.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and figure out what the hell else is going on. What was it? Beneath the Peddler's Moon? Is that what this section was called? See what else is going on. All right, see you guys.
Bye, everyone.